All right, what is up, fight fans? Had to wait for that little break in the music right there. Perfect little EDM to get you going, wake you up. And I say wake you up because even if you're on the East Coast, it's daytime fights. It's the UFC fight night. Chiesa versus Magny live on MMA Weekly. I'm Jim Greasehaber. Call me Grease. We got Jeff Kane here. He shaved the beard. He opened up his closet. He got the nice shirt out, and he is so excited. We were just talking before the show went on the air. Jeff, you could not wait to do this show for this particular fight card in between Max Holloway's dominating performance over Calvin Kattar on Fight Night Saturday on ABC, and a couple of guys named Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor, UFC 257 on Saturday night. It's good to see you again, Jeff. We got wall-to-wall shows throughout the week. The press release went out this morning to 171 news outlets. We are inching closer to UFC 257 and the notorious Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, number 2.
Yeah, Wednesday, middle of the week, why not have a fight card in the day? It's kind of strange, man. Daytime fight cards, it's not something I'm used to. I mean, they pop up every now and then, a couple a year. Inauguration day, some fights going on. What's not to like, top 10 welterweights in the main event.
At least we're not in DC. I mean, that's it's like freezing and blistering cold and windy. And I mean, history's being made with Kamala Harris being sworn in and Joe Biden taking over as the president. Donald Trump departed on Air Force One. And no matter how you feel about any of that, we don't care. We're here to talk about the fights. But it is a big day in America. We already have some people on the chat. It's filling up as we speak, Jeff. And one thing you can always count on with a weekday show like this, people are at work on their computers and they're not working. They're going to be on the internet anyway doing things and on social media. They might as well be here with us, right?
Might as well. Just have 2 screens pulled up so you can put this one in the background when the boss comes in. That's a pro tip of laziness.
Someone says, I love Gina Carano. We already got that started, just a random quote, but we have a bunch of you saying hi. The chat's already filling up. Going to get your comments throughout the day. We're here, and we're, I always like to say that we're fluffers, right? So we're fluffing you up and getting you ready for Conor McGregor and Poirier 2. And Jeff, you know what fluffers are. If you don't know what fluffers are, guys, look them up. But we're fluffers right now because all we're doing is getting you ready for the big day on Saturday. But we're here for a couple hours today. Chiesa and Magny, 2 of the top guys I've met. I like both those guys very much. Interviewed them both a bunch of times over the years. And this looks like it could be a really good fight. Now, remember, this was supposed to be Khamzat Chimaev and Leon Edwards, which is now pushed back again. This was supposed to be that fight here today. So they scrambled. They get a resurging Neil Magny, who had some time on the shelf and came back, looked very impressive in 2020. And Mike the Mav Chiesa, he's going to scrap every time he gets in there. So that main event's a pretty good main event. You have some other pretty good fighters on the card, but, not the card with all the sizzle. Nothing's McGregor Poirier, but, not the Holloway Kattar and not a ton of sizzle with this card. But Chiesa and Magny as a main event, I'd love it if it were a co-main, but as a main event on this card, that's a fight I don't want to miss, and I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, it's a good matchup. They're both ranked right there. What you got? Chiesa ranked 8th, Magny ranked 9th. It's a meaningful fight in that division. Like you said, Neil's kind of had this resurgence lately. Both of them are on win streaks. It's an interesting fight. It should be a competitive fight. Yeah, and then there's a drop-off on the fight card, but, that doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean that they're not going to be good fights, but this is kind of that weird middle event, right? We kicked off to 2021 with a nice, ridiculous card, and then we got this Wednesday card that we kind of shuffled in here, and then Saturday is the main deal, so I don't know. A lot of people probably overlook this fight card, but it does have an extremely good main event.
Well, I'm glad you busted out the nice shirt and you got the beard trimmed and we're ready to roll. We got a busy week this week with a ton of shows. We'll recap those for you in just a minute, take you through them. But Jeff, it's interesting. These fight cards are always the ones that you don't want to miss. Whenever you look at it and you go, not so much, it ends up having classic fights on there. I could go through a list a mile long of fight cards that did that, but I just want to explain to everybody, and Jeff, you know this, and everyone at MMA Week, we know this, it's almost 20 years as the most trusted source in news and entertainment in MMA, but here's the situation. I'm going to break it down a little bit for you. I have 25 years in TV, and I learned a couple things along the way, and one thing you learn, and if you think about it, the UFC has X number of shows they're contracted to do for ESPN, ESPN Plus, the networks, pay-per-views, right? So certain number of shows they have to get in contractually, which is why we saw them scramble and put so many in last year in short periods of time, no weeks off, things like that. And you think about it, here we are. We had Holloway and Cater on January 16th was the first fight card of the year, right? So your first fight card of the year, you've already missed 2 weeks. Then the end of January, because they went to Fight Island, which of course is a week from this Saturday, there's no fight card because they're traveling back to Vegas to do them at the Apex. So that's 3 weeks in January without fights. They have certain number of fights they have to fulfill contractually to get paid. Hence, a Wednesday fight card in the middle of the day. Hey, we're already going to be on Fight Island. Let's just do a third one in there. We'll call it Fight Week. Everyone will love it. And everyone's been jonesing for us for 4 weeks with no fights. That's what this is. This is a contract filler. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, and the fans in attendance, it's on their time. That we didn't hold this to where it airs in the U.S. in prime time. That's what we're going to do on Saturday. So the first two events we kind of are for Abu Dhabi, and then we have the big fight card that's for the whole world. But yeah, man, I mean, it is what it is. I don't mind midweek fight cards. I don't mind them in the daytime. They're just odd because when this is over, I'm going to walk outside and the sun's still going to be up, and I'm going to say, what the hell's going on? Thinking that maybe it's the morning and not so much the evening.
Yeah, no doubt. And some of the fights are already in the books, and we can give you some recaps there. But first, I want to let you guys know, shooting a show a little bit later today, Conor McGregor's funniest moments. We're going to pick from his press conferences, and Jeff picked one the other day where there's only $5,000 in this backpack, and Mayweather had the Irish flag around him, and so that's going to be on there, I'm sure. And we have a bunch of things coming your way with that. And then we have the preview show, which is going to be on Friday. And that's the live preview show. We're going to do it Friday, and I can't remember what time. I better pull up the press release here because it's a pretty good idea when the host of the show has an idea what's going on. That would be nice, Jim. Hello. I'm going to pull up the press release here, and we are going to break it down for you because I'm not sure exactly what time we come on Friday. So let's see. We are going to come on, I know, Saturday right before the fights, a half hour before the fights. So that'll be 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific, about a half hour before that on Saturday night. And then Sunday, we're on at 12 Pacific, which is 3 o'clock Eastern on Sunday. And then on Friday, we are, where are we here? Okay, there it is, PR final. I have so many files with such a busy fight week. So Friday, we are going to be on at 12 Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. So 10 Mountain Time. That's Friday, 12 Eastern, 9 Pacific on Friday. Saturday, 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern. That's PM. And then Sunday, 3 Eastern, 12 Pacific with the wrap-up show. So we got a busy week, Jeff. We got a lot of stuff going on with some guy named Conor McGregor. He made his return, arrives in style on Fight Island, shirtless through the checkpoints. But, there's one thing we know for sure. When Conor McGregor's fight is about to happen, the whole world starts to buzz. And you can feel that buzz right now.
Yeah, and he knows how to make an entrance. I mean, Conor McGregor's a showman. He made his entrance, like you said, shirtless. And yeah, I think that the anticipation's starting to kind of mount up for everybody. You hear more and more people talking about this fight card. Before they were just talking about Conor McGregor's going to fight, and they would say the date. Now we're in fight week, and we're edging closer to fight night. And you hear people, the chatter online. The text messages that I get from my friends, who's going to win this fight? Who should I put money on? Those are starting to come in now. But yeah, man, McGregor is, he's the biggest draw in the UFC. He's the biggest draw in the sport. And we'll see what happens on Saturday in the rematch.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And I'm excited to see what happens in that fight because Poirier is legit. And we're going to talk about that a lot here today on the show. And we'll break down some of what's going on in the octagon over in Abu Dhabi. Someone asked about the press conference. The press conference was yesterday. So it's not today. Someone's asking if we had it today. It was yesterday, the press conference. So you can check that out. But man, and we got to get that guy out of the chat, this E.T. McCrome guy. Get him out of there. Someone please get him. But it's we have no place for that on our show. But the press conference was yesterday. The fights are going on right now. And we have literally 3 more fights before the main event because Matt Schnell and Tyson Nam just ended. And so you had Akhmedov with the win. You had Lerone Murphy with the win. You got Roxanne Modafferi coming up, and Vivian Arahu. We'll go with that. And Isaac Villanueva and Vinicius Moreira. Warley Alves and Monir Lesis is coming up. So we'll check the pronunciations. My guy, it's not John Anik today calling the fights, but we'll work our way through this fight card as best we can.
Yeah, some of these, that's the thing about these fight cards, though. While I even criticized this before the air, saying, there's not a lot of pop outside of the main event, these are the fight cards where people emerge, right? That you don't know who they are, and then after today, you're going to know who they are. And so that's the significance of this event, really, is you're going to have people pop out a name. They're going to make a name for themselves, and they're going to generate an audience that's going to want to see them fight the next time. Because a lot of these guys I'm not all that familiar with, other than looking at their fight record. I haven't seen a lot of these fighters actually fight, which is kind of strange. I mean, other than the highlight clips that we do to prepare for the show, I can't remember seeing a lot of these people fight, and then some of them I do. Roxanne's a pioneer, a legend in the sport, and then we'll see who pops out of this card and makes a name for themselves.
Yeah, and speaking of making a name for themselves, two guys who were supposed to be doing that today, and they're going to be coming up on March 13th now, it would be Edwards and Chimaev. They just talked about that. So DC and Felder on, and that's solid too. When you have DC and Felder calling fights together, solid analyst team for the UFC today. So that makes it entertaining and fun too. So March 13th will be Edwards and Chimaev, which was supposed to be today. And this is what, Jeff, the third time this fight's been put off? Is this approaching Khabib Tony territory?
Well, we'll see. We'll see as we get closer to March. But yeah, I mean, if it gets canceled one more time, then we're definitely in that territory. I believe Tony and Khabib were put together 5 times, and it never came to fruition. This one's 3 times, and we hope that it's March. But in the world we're living in right now, you just can't hold your breath on those things. A lot of people are going to fall off fight cards, and there's going to be a lot of replacements, a lot of last minute fill-ins. That's just where we are right now in the sport. Hopefully, as we go through 2021, we're going to see less and less of that, and people are going to be falling off fight cards just due to injury and not the virus.
Yeah, and I mean, I know some people who have the virus now, and it's just, I mean, we went over 400,000 deaths yesterday. The UFC doing what they've been doing has been absolutely amazing, soldiering on right through it. Back at Fight Island, Holloway with an all-time epic performance against Calvin Kattar and making a guy who's number 6 in the world look like he didn't belong in the octagon with him. And Max has done that to almost everyone throughout his career. So can't wait to see what he does the rest of this year. But it was a great start, Jeff, to a big year for the UFC, man. And as I'm looking at these events that are coming up, I mean, you got Overeem and Volkov coming up at the Apex, which is, right around the corner. And that's a pretty good heavyweight matchup. But and 2 solid pros have been around a long time. You got UFC 258 right after that. And man, there's going to be some huge Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns. We were supposed to see that fight last year. That's a huge one. Uriah Hall and Chris Weidman, a couple of New Yorkers in there, and a couple of really good middleweights. I'm excited for that fight. Kelvin Gastelum and Ian Heinisch is on that fight card. Pedro Munoz and Jimmy Rivera is one you don't want to sleep on. Diego Lima and Bilal Muhammad. That's coming up at UFC 258. And then when you look at 259 and 260, both of them are going to be in March. You got Izzy and Jan for the light heavyweight belt. You got Nunes and Anderson, Piotr Jan and Aljamain Sterling. So 3 championship fights on that fight card, which is UFC 259. Can't wait for that one. And also, look, Joseph Benavidez is on that card. Dominic Cruz and Casey Kenny are on that card. So that's a really big one. And then you look ahead to UFC 260, which is also going to be in March. And that's the one that, man, I can't wait for Stipe and Francis, Volkanovski and Ortega to headline that card. And then Jimmy Crute and Johnny Walker announced for that card as well. So we have some really, and I've been talking to a lot of people, and I've been trying to fire people up about what we're doing here at MMA Weekly. If you'd like to sponsor what we're doing, hit us up. We'll get you in here because it's going to be wall to wall all year long. Pre-fight press conferences and weigh-ins and post-fight. But the buzz around the UFC right now with Conor McGregor is huge. And when you back that up, Jeff, and you can promote the 3 fight cards I just talked about, with all those 5, 6 title fights between now and the end of March. 6 huge title fights between now and the end of March. Great way to start the year for the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, this is the second event of the year, and then things are going to pick up. You look at all these events and get excited. I can't do that anymore. I got to take it one event at a time and kind of put that to rest before I move on to the other one, because so much change happens. I kind of started doing that last year because these fight cards change on a dime, And to break down a fight card on Tuesday and have it change on Thursday really sucks, you know? And so now I just kind of look at them as they go. I didn't realize there were that many title fights in March until you just said that, though. I'm looking forward to March, man. That was my complaint of 2020. We didn't see enough title fights. We didn't see enough champions in the octagon. Well, we're getting them early in 2021.
Yeah, and I mentioned in February on the 6th, which is my mom's birthday, actually, Overeem and Volkov. That's going to be awesome. A couple of heavyweights, and then the UFC 258, Usman and Burns title fight, and then the Fight Night 185, which is the week after that. And I understand what you're saying. We can't get too excited because you never know, but that one is the one that I'm looking forward to. Blades and Derek Lewis. That's a good heavyweight fight, man. I'm really looking forward to seeing that one too.
Yeah, these fights are like, even if they fall apart, the UFC is still probably going to try to work the same matchup. You know, that's usually their MO. That's what they try to do. But sometimes that doesn't work out that way. So even if these fights kind of fall apart and don't take place on the dates that they're advertised, I'm confident we are going to get to see those fights. So yeah, you know, it's just you look ahead further than I do, man. That's all. You know, you just look a little bit further ahead. To me, I'm focused on this weekend and today, and we'll let the kind of February play itself out. But there's big fights coming up in the UFC in the first quarter of 2021 for sure, and hopefully we carry that out through the rest of the year. And I think we will, because we're going to have fans back in the U.S., I think, in the fall.
That'll be amazing, man. And if you listen to Dr. Fauci, which, I mean, look, it's been a roller coaster for him too, but we're looking at maybe the fall for full crowds and events, concerts, everything. And we know the UFC will be among the first in line for that, if not leading the way like they did through COVID. But we got a big one on Saturday night, man. I mean, there's no denying the force that is Conor McGregor inside the octagon, outside the octagon, his presence, the sizzle that the fight cards have, his star power. It's red panty night. Right? I mean, nothing's ever been more appropriate when talking about Conor McGregor. Anytime anyone fights me, it's red panty night. Well, it's red panty night for Dustin Poirier for the second time on Saturday night. And that's a huge, huge fight card. Not only for that one, Jeff, but the debut of Michael Chandler. And one of the biggest questions heading into 2021, at least for me, that whole 155 division's just loaded. And if you haven't watched our 2021 preview show yet on MMA Weekly's YouTube, make sure you check that out because it's absolutely phenomenal. And I see a floating poster on the screen right there. That's how big this fight is. It's divine intervention. God's just floating in a poster right now of Poirier McGregor 2, which is coming up, you know, and it's on Saturday. So when I look at Conor McGregor, I mean, obviously we saw him for 46 seconds last year. We thought we were going to see him 3-4 times. We saw him for 46 seconds, destroy Cowboy Cerrone, and he hasn't had a lot of cage time at all. The Khabib fight before that. So we don't know against such a high-level competitor in Poirier what we're going to see from Conor McGregor, only that we can go by what they've talked about with his camp. He's still training with all the guys from Portugal. The cardio is still intense and what he's doing there. But Conor McGregor shows up to fight every single time. He'll fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. If you believe Dana, he says he's the Conor of old. He looked great against Donald Cerrone. Incredible. But it's Donald Cerrone. No disrespect. Donald Cerrone is nowhere near Dustin Poirier. Not even close.
No, Donald is in the decline of his career, you know, and that's no disrespect to Donald. He's had a great career from the WEC to the UFC, you know, fighting regularly, stepping in on short notice. I mean, Donald's a legend, man. But age, he's not. Yeah, he's in the decline of his career, where Poirier is not. Poirier is in his prime right now. Poirier is probably fighting better than he's ever fought, and so. And this is a rematch, but their first fight didn't go long. It was in a different weight class 6 years ago. You know, so there's a lot of interest from me in this fight to see how Poirier approaches this, because he's been in there with Conor McGregor before. He got knocked out by Conor McGregor. So do you play the same game? You know, this is like I said, and this is a different weight class, a different time. I don't really know what's going to happen. I know a lot of people are going to just immediately say Conor McGregor's going to win by knockout. He predicted that he would knock out Poirier within a minute. I don't know if I'm sold on that just yet. I got to see the weigh-ins. No, I don't. The weigh-ins tell me everything.
Yeah. What are you looking for at the weigh-ins? I want to hear what you're looking for, what they're going to tell you.
I mean, you immediately know when they walk out whether or not it was a hard weight cut, and just to see how dehydrated they are. You know, for one, because Conor, particularly when he fought at 145, he looked terrible at the weigh-ins. So historically, even though he doesn't look great at the weigh-ins and kind of looks skeletal and really dehydrated down, he performs the next night. But I'm interested to see what Poirier looks like. I'm interested to see their reaction, because Conor likes to try to get a reaction out of you at a weigh-in and kind of establish that psychological warfare. He establishes the psychological warfare months out, but that's where it kind of peaks before you step into the octagon. It's the last time you get to see your opponent. And Conor usually will like, I don't know, faint like he's going to punch you or something. I'm just interested to see how Poirier responds, because I think Poirier's in a different place now than he was when they first fought.
Yeah, without a doubt. And he's been an interim champ. He's competed with Khabib. He actually came closer to beating Khabib than anybody did, because he had that choke sunk in, and Nurmagomedov was able to escape and choke him out himself. But this is footage of the weigh-in from their first fight. Conor cutting to 45 just didn't look right at all to me. But remember, both the Diaz fights were at 170. Before that, it was always 145. He's only had 2 fights at 55. Alvarez when he won the belt, and Khabib when, Khabib just destroyed him throughout that fight and then ended up choking him out. But at the end of the day, he's had 2 fights at 155. The Cowboy fight last year was at 170. This is Conor's first time cutting to 55 in over 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. With Conor, I typically don't like the long layoffs between fights. It's hard to maintain that top level, in my opinion, when you're not getting the reps in the ring. But for Conor, he's never been that active outside of that first year when he arrived in the UFC. He's really not all that active, and so I expect him to show up in good shape. It's just a matter of, has he improved? How much has Conor McGregor improved in the last 6 years? Because I think that Dustin Poirier has improved a lot. Conor McGregor, I don't know how much he's improved. Surely his ground game's gotten better, though, right? I mean, surely that was the biggest hole in his game. And if I was going to address anything, if I were Conor, I'd be working on my jiu-jitsu and takedown defense. But that leads me into what Poirier. I think that we're going to see a different fight. While everybody wants to see a stand-up fight, if I'm Dustin Poirier, this is a grappling fight. This is a grappling fight from the moment the bell rings. I'm in wrestler mode.
Yeah, and that would be that. Now I mean, number one objective is to win the fight, but man, I know pride's on the line. The fans don't want to see that. He might not make it out of there if he doesn't stand and trade with Conor. I know what you're saying, and he's got a great advantage grappling in this fight, but man, everyone in the world wants to see Dustin Poirier stand and trade with Conor McGregor, and I feel like Poirier thinks, Jeff, from what I've seen, Poirier feels like he can beat him on the feet. And maybe he tries to stick with that, but I don't know how you feel about it. I think it'd be a mistake. I think you're right. He does need to come out in wrestler and grappler mode from the opening minute of the fight.
Yeah, I just think that Conor's punching power is what you got to worry about. I don't think that Conor's necessarily technically a better striker than Poirier, but he has a lot more punching power. And so when Conor hits you, your reaction is totally different than when Poirier hits you typically, And so I tell you what, Conor fans want to see Poirier stand up with him. I just think that Poirier is in a different place right now. He's much more experienced, and he's going to approach this fight to win. It isn't about ego to him. It isn't about all that. Conor can have a show all he wants, but he's going to have to fend off takedowns by Poirier. But then, you always have a game plan until the fists start flying, right? And the adrenaline's going, and then who knows? It might end up being a brawl. It might end up being a grappling affair, and it might end up just being a kind of an Aldo, or like it was in the first Poirier fight where it's over in a minute, But I think that Poirier, that's where he wants to avoid in this fight. I think in the first round, he's not going to get into exchanges. He's just going to kind of fill him out, and he's going to try to get out of that first round, because at the end of the day, Conor McGregor only has one win when the fight gets out of the second round.
Yeah, and his cardio has always been a question, or was, after the first Diaz fight, and we've all, seen the story from there. He's worked on that a lot, and, the second Diaz fight, he went the distance and looked a lot better. Khabib, he didn't look like he gassed out too much in that fight, even though the relentless pressure put on by the Eagle. And, man, I love Khabib, by the way. Did you see his little push-up challenge with his cousin, who, by the way, won today? Where he had Javier Mendez filming it, and he's like, okay, 25 push-ups. The people going to tell who look better. He's competing at everything 24/7. That's why I'm like, man, Khabib, you're not retired. He loves to compete too much. But it's always fun watching that, but he won't be there. It bears repeating for UFC 257. He will not be there, which is a pretty telling sign in and of itself to see. and the fallout. And we talked about this earlier. I mean, one of the most compelling questions for me heading into 2021 is, where will Michael Chandler stand in that 55 division? Will he be able to do what Justin Gaethje did, coming in as a former champion from another organization, and have the type of success that Justin Gaethje has had in the UFC, all the way up to being, in a title fight and being an interim champion? So Michael Chandler's debut against Dan Hooker, Conor and Poirier, and we talked about that. And Jeff, the thing about Conor McGregor that really strikes me every single time is when you get a focused and prepared Conor McGregor, I still don't know if anybody can beat him. I mean, against Khabib, he said he didn't take the camp seriously. He was a little bit hurt coming in. The first Diaz fight, he unloaded on Diaz, and that was a late replacement, and thought he had him finished and gassed out. And, didn't realize at the time Diaz has a superhuman chin, and the more you hit him, the better he gets. So Conor McGregor, when he shows up as the best version of himself, has crushed and destroyed everyone. I mean, we're talking about a guy who just destroyed Eddie Alvarez, destroyed Poirier in the first fight. He didn't finish Max Holloway, but he dominated him. He dominated and or destroyed some of the best fighters, including Jose Aldo, in the history of the UFC. So when Conor's right and he's on his game, can anybody beat him? Is Poirier even capable of beating Conor McGregor if the right Conor McGregor shows up? But also, Poirier is so much different and so much better than he was before. And, I know guys who train with him in an American Top Team. He's added levels to his game. He's at 55, not 45. The fight was in a different weight class when both guys were cutting a lot more weight. They've both had a ton of fights and a ton of cage time in between, or Poirier has a lot more than Conor. And he's fought on the highest of levels. And he's fought Conor before. So he's not going to be intimidated by the moment at all. He's fought in Abu Dhabi before, as a matter of fact, against Khabib. So this is a way different version of Dustin Poirier. We've seen him against Hooker, against Max Holloway, outlast and beat these guys in slugfest. I really hope he does stand and trade with Conor McGregor on Saturday. But, I know that Poirier's advantage would be on the ground. But I really feel like this could be one of those fights that could be one of the best fights we've ever seen in that division. I think these two guys can give us that on Saturday night. This isn't just a hype fight.
No, it's not a hype fight, but I think that some of that polish has been knocked off Conor McGregor a little bit. Chad Mendez had him in a lot of trouble. Khabib dropped him in the first round. Nate Diaz beat him in the first fight. And in the second fight, Conor kind of resorted to kind of running around the last round to win on points. I mean, so when Conor hits you, you fall. That's the deal with Conor McGregor. Is Conor McGregor beatable? Absolutely. Absolutely he's beatable. Is he beatable by Dustin Poirier is what we have to ask, is the big question that we're going to find out this weekend. And I don't know. I don't know. It just depends on the way the fight plays out, because I think that Conor, for most of his career, was like Anderson was, where he won the fight before the fight started. You're looking across at an icon. You're looking across at the biggest star in the sport. You're looking across at a guy who finishes guys in the first exchange. And I don't think that he has that anymore to other fighters. And I definitely don't think he has that to Poirier. He might to other fighters, but to Poirier's been around too long, man. He's been in there with Conor McGregor. He's been in there with everybody. He doesn't get rattled by any of that. And I think that could come into play, but it could come into play to hurt Poirier. If Poirier goes out there and just starts exchanging with Conor McGregor, then, man, that's a damn dangerous game plan. If he goes out there and kind of mixes it up, and anytime Conor touches him, ties him up and clinches and makes it one of those kind of fights, like a Mendez kind of fight, then it's a very interesting matchup. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, because Conor doesn't fight often enough for us to determine how much he's improved or how much he's declined. We don't know. We just don't know. We'll find out on Saturday. I don't think that Conor's declined. I think Conor's in shape. Conor's ready to go, right? Conor doesn't accept fights unless he's ready to go. He's ready to go. We'll just see if Poirier can rise to that challenge, man. It's hard to beat a guy that's the level of Poirier twice. I'll say that. It's hard to beat a guy his level twice.
Hard to beat him. And we're looking at Poirier there. And Conor has said, though, that, the camp for Khabib and other fights, he wasn't there mentally. And they said he didn't enjoy it anymore. Some of his coaches had said he was losing his love for the sport, and that he got it back before the Cowboy fight. And then with Conor, he even said it after Cerrone. In 46 seconds, he destroys Donald Cerrone. He said, hey, I stopped drinking my beloved Proper 12 about 3 months before the fight. And so, Conor does party. He does have fun. He does have a lot of distractions in his life on the business side, on the family side. And I say distractions in the nicest possible way. But you're right about Poirier, man. This is a guy who at one point lost to Michael Johnson. And we saw some footage a couple of minutes ago about of Poirier in that Dan Hooker fight, and definitely a big win for him, and know everything we need to know about Hooker and how tough he is. That fight was back and forth. It was one of the best fights of 2020. Both guys on the feet, both guys with the grappling, and Poirier found a way to win that one by unanimous decision. That was last June. So he hasn't fought in over 6 months. Conor hasn't fought in over a year, and both of them have that one common loss, and that's Khabib. But early in his career, he lost to Danny Castillo, he lost to Chan Sung Jung, he lost to Cub Swanson, and he lost to, of course, Conor McGregor, and then Michael Johnson, and that was in 2016. So since the Johnson fight, if you look at what Poirier's done, and Dustin Poirier has clearly, I was there for the Gaethje fight. I sat 10 feet away from the cage. That was back and forth. Gaethje looked like he had it won. Poirier found a way to get it done. The no contest with Eddie Alvarez with the illegal knees while he was a downed opponent, that was something that was, not the best performance by Poirier, but he got Pettis, destroyed Anthony Pettis. He beat Gaethje right after that. He TKO'd Alvarez. The win over Max was when I really felt like I saw Poirier take that step up to the championship level. The fight against Max Holloway that he dominated early on, and really Max was destroying everything in his path at that moment, even though it was up a weight class. That was in April of 2019, the Poirier-Holloway fight. And then after that was against Khabib that got him the lightweight title shot, and that was Max was the interim fight. He lost to Khabib by rear naked choke, but he looked pretty good, or as good as anybody has looked against Khabib. Again, he was working for a submission of his own and had the choke in for a while. So that run that he started with Pettis, Gaethje, Alvarez, Holloway up to the Khabib fight was where we saw Poirier take that huge step up. And then against Hooker, taking everything Hooker had, and depending upon how good you think Hooker is, Poirier got the win by unanimous decision. So heading into this fight, completely different fighter, different weight class. Conor hasn't been active. A lot of people are picking Dustin Poirier to win this fight.
I haven't looked at the odds, but if he's a big underdog, it's worth throwing a little money down on there. I don't know who's going to win this fight. Dustin Poirier is incredibly well-rounded. He's seasoned, right? Conor McGregor's Conor McGregor. This is hard. It's a hard fight to call. I mean, I think a lot of people are gonna be like, Conor McGregor's gonna knock him out because that's your go-to, right? Conor McGregor's gonna knock him out. Conor McGregor's gonna knock him out. But I don't know, man. Like I said, Dustin Poirier's not. He's so experienced, and he's been in there with Conor before. Once you've lost to somebody, you start analyzing why you lost to him, and then those opportunities aren't going to be available for Conor in the rematch, or at least that was Poirier's goal. I don't know who's going to win this fight. Poirier looks like he hits harder now than he did at 145 as well. I think he's better at 155 than he was at 145. Where Conor, I don't know. I don't know if he's better at 155 than he was at 145, where he dominated that division. Because at 155, he's got a couple of fights, right? It's hard to say. Conor's got a weird legacy because he's this multi-division champion, but's never defended a title. And so he's got this weird kind of legacy that I feel like he needs to shore up at before his career is over, or he's going to face a lot of criticism after his career is over on what really did he accomplish. Because
he did win both belts. Yep.
I mean, Matt Hughes famously said, "You're not a champion until you defend your belt," and I kind of go by that a little bit. Not really. You're a champion when you beat the champion, but you're not a legend until you defend a title, in my opinion.
No, and he did win the 2 belts, and he did get the big fight against Mayweather. But I agree with you, man. Conor's legacy right now would be more about the business, the personality, the funny press conference stuff. And again, we got a show coming out tomorrow with the top 5 of those here on MMA Weekly. But that would be Conor's legacy. Great fighter, beat a lot of huge and tough opponents in his career, but not defending titles is a big, big part of becoming a legend. And if he wants to be up there with the GSPs, with the Anderson Silvas, with the Mighty Mouse Johnsons, with the Khabibs, even, he's got a long way to go with the John Jones. I mean, a long way to go. And I agree with you. But here's the odds. Here are the odds, Jeff, for this fight. And, different books will have them on different things. But what I'm seeing in front of me right now is McGregor's minus 310, Poirier's plus 240, and plus 5,000 for a draw. So if you're an idiot, you can bet that. But minus 310, Conor, plus 240, Poirier. Now, method of victory. And rematch with Jones didn't help Cormier. Cormier is not on GOAT Mountain. He's not even close, in my opinion. He's a great fighter, one of the best of our generation. But when you're talking Jones, Silva, GSP, Mighty Mouse level, DC's nowhere near there. Conor's nowhere near there. They're just not. But method of victory, Conor by KO or TKO minus 180. McGregor by points plus 650. I mean, that'll tell you all you need to know about what people feel about Conor McGregor, right? So that's something that people think not very likely to happen. If McGregor's to win by decision, would be plus 650. McGregor by submission plus 3,300. Now, if Conor messes around and chokes him out, you're getting paid on that one. Poirier by KO, TKO is plus 600. That looks like a pretty good bet to me. Poirier by submission plus 1,100. Poirier by decision plus 700.
I'll take that plus 1,100 on the submission.
You
know, that's the bet. If in my opinion, not because Poirier is going to do it. That's not my prediction. I'm just looking at the numbers and saying that Poirier finishing McGregor either by submission or knockout are pretty high odds, right? I mean, you can make some money on that, and the probability of that happening is not as far fetched as those odds. Those are good numbers, man. If you're a gambler, I'm not a gambler, but those are good numbers to throw some money down if you're looking at chase up. And 1,100 that Dustin Poirier submits Conor McGregor. If that fight goes to the ground, I give Poirier a really good chance of submitting Conor McGregor.
Yeah, plus 11. That means you bet 100, you win 11. That's a pretty good number.
Yeah, I mean that's the
if
number.
I were going to bet on Poirier,
that'd
that'd probably be what I'd do.
Well, if I was Poirier, I'd put money on myself and take him down and see if I can't make I think you're allowed to do that in the fight game. You used to be able to. You're allowed to bet on yourself. You're just not allowed to bet against yourself or whatever, man. I don't know the gambling laws, but I'm pretty sure you can put money on yourself.
Right now over in Abu Dhabi, Araujo and Modafferi are fighting, and it's been a dominating performance for Araujo. She's on top right now after a takedown with about 30 seconds left in the fight. So Roxanne's looking like she's not going to get the victory here unless she can do something, maybe get a submission off her back, as you know, Araujo's is in top position as we close out this fight. A bunch more coming your way before Chiesa and Magny. Jim Griesauber, Jeff Kane. We're breaking down UFC 257 right now. We're like the rest of the world. We're talking about it all week long. The return of the notorious Conor McGregor. And we were talking about some of the odds a minute ago, Jeff. Plus 1,100 for Poirier to win by submission. You bet 100, you win 11. Plus 600 for Poirier by TKO or KO. But when you look at McGregor's numbers, it's only minus 180, which means you bet 100 to win 180 for McGregor to win by KO or TKO. So even if you throw together Conor just to win and then you parlay it with the KO TKO, you're looking at minus 310 and minus 180. You're not really winning any. You don't have a good chance to win much money on Conor McGregor. He's always such a big favorite. But if you like Dustin Poirier's chances in this fight, Jeff and I were just saying the best thing you could probably do is bet Poirier to win straight up, or bet Poirier to win by submission, because you'll get paid $1,100 on a $100 bet. So that fight, of course, is Saturday on Fight Island. I don't see odds on Chandler. What do you think about that? And again, you're coming in from another organization where you were a champion, and you weren't. I don't think that Chandler was the best lightweight in Bellator. I think Patricio Pitbull is the best lightweight in Bellator, and he proved it against Chandler last year. So he's coming in as a guy, and Justin Gaethje had some tough fights in WSOF, but he was the champ and held the belt for a long time. Bellator, arguably a little better than WSOF was at the time, a little deeper in that division. And, you know, he did beat former UFC champ Benson Henderson twice. But how do you think Mike Chandler is going to do in the UFC? He's plus 100 against Hooker. Hooker's minus 120, the favorite in that fight.
I think he's going to do well in the UFC, but he has to get past Dan Hooker first. You know, that's a tough debut fight, man. But I think Chandler's really going to do fine in the UFC. I think the fans are going to love Michael Chandler, right? I mean, those people who don't follow Bellator, Michael Chandler's an aggressive, take the fight to you, straightforward kind of fighter, man. It doesn't back away. You know, he isn't afraid of the slugfest. He isn't afraid of any of that kind of stuff. He is a lot like Gaethje in a way as far as his approach to fighting. So I think that he's going to have a good career in the UFC, and I think the fans are going to love him. I just don't know if he's going to get past Dan Hooker, because that is a very tall order in your debut. In fact, Chandler says that Dan Hooker's a tougher matchup for him than Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just trying to get attention. I mean, maybe. Do you buy that?
I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe.
I mean,
Mike doesn't mince
maybe.
words. I know him. He doesn't mince words.
Yeah,
He
he's
says
not a
what's
guy
on his
that
mind.
usually does that. And that's why I brought it up. Whenever he says something, he usually means it. But then again, he's new to the UFC and maybe he's just trying to promote a fight. But that would be different than how he's been in the past. He kind of just says what he means. And so I feel, and maybe it's just him telling himself that, right, to get him motivated to fight Hooker. This is the toughest fight. This is the one. He's tougher than McGregor. Maybe he tells himself that. But I feel like he was making a decent point that he feels like Dan Hooker poses a bigger threat all around to him than Conor does. Conor's threat is always his knockout power. That's his threat, and he always has that. And he controls
Hooker's
distance.
a beast.
I'm not downplaying Conor McGregor's fighting ability. He controls distance extremely well, throws straight punches. His timing is impeccable. His accuracy is ridiculous, and his punching power is through the roof. So, but those are the things that make Conor McGregor dangerous. If you feel like you can take Conor down or you can weather those storms standing, then Conor McGregor, Dan Hooker might be a tougher matchup for you. I don't know.
And Michael Chandler's
so.
wrestling is probably why he said that. You're right. Chandler's wrestling is top level, and against Conor McGregor, he would certainly be looking to take him down and finish him violently on the ground because Chandler is very aggressive. He loves to take you down and beat you up. But I love Hooker's story, too. I mean, he trains with Israel Adesanya and those guys at City Kickboxing with Eugene Behrman, and he's been around a long time. He's got 3 losses on the local circuit in SCF and Rise, RIZE. So he lost 3 times on the way up. 4 times if you count his Legend FC fight in Hong Kong. So he lost 4 times on the way up. Then he gets to the UFC and lost 3 of his first 5 fights, right? 3 of his first 6 fights, against Maximo Blanco, Yair Rodriguez, and Jason Knight. And then he goes on a win streak against Pearson, Diakese, Jim Miller, and he actually beat Gilbert Burns, interestingly enough, before Burns changed weight classes, right? His last loss, or not his last loss, but his last loss before Poirier, was Edson Barbosa on a punch to the body. That was back in December of 2018 on the Lee Iaquinta 2 card. So he's taken the circuitous route, and I love throwing that word out there anytime I can. He's tasted adversity. He's tasted defeat along the way. He keeps training, keeps scrapping, keeps fighting, getting better and better. After the Barboza loss, he went out to knock out James Vick, a unanimous decision against Al Iaquinta, and then a split decision over Paul Felder, which was last February in New Zealand in a great fight. And then after that, it was Poirier. So a lot of people just thought, well, this is just an opponent for Poirier. Poirier is going to win this fight pretty easily. So Hooker's performance against Poirier kind of opened everybody's eyes a little more because before then, wins over Vick, Iaquinta, and Felder, while they're top-level competition, they're not top of the top. So for him to be on that level, he needed to perform really well against Poirier, and he did. It was clear that Dustin won the fight. Hooker was outstanding in that fight. I think this is a really good matchup for Chandler in his debut, but I also think for Hooker to prove that he can fight and beat the best in the world, this is a fight he has to win if he has championship aspirations. And, that's why Mike Chandler, so much to prove coming in. Hooker's got so much to prove in that division. He wants to welcome the Bellator fighter in and show him what the UFC is all about. So you got a lot of interesting, subplots and storylines with this fight that I can't wait to see how it plays out. He's a Muay Thai fighter. He's a City Kickboxing guy. He's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. I think this is a great matchup for Mike Chandler.
I like the matchup for Chandler, but Hooker's tough, man. I mean, it's a tough fight. I like Chandler's style. Like I said, I think that the UFC fans are going to love Michael Chandler. Hooker, he's just a difficult matchup, and like you brought up, the Poirier fight opened a lot of people's eyes. He's just a hard out, and there's those fighters that you just know it's going to be a war, and you're going to have to dig deep to beat him. That's Dan Hooker, no matter who he faces. And it's a dangerous fight for Chandler. Chandler wants to come into the UFC, make a statement, and then get to a title fight immediately. And then Hooker's wanting to just ruin that. I'm just going to completely ruin this guy's debut and dash any title aspirations that he has. I think it's a very good matchup. I think it's a close fight. I don't know who's going to win, and it's probably going to come down to those weird in-between stages because Chandler on an exit of a clinch or on a break or something, because both of those guys never stop fighting. They'll hit you. They don't take breaks. Where you'll see some fighters, we're clinch, we're gonna break, and we're all gonna be cordial about the break. Hooker and Chandler don't do that. As soon as there's space to throw a punch or an elbow, there's an elbow or a punch thrown.
There's an elbow or a punch thrown, and Chandler, of course, not in the rankings yet. Hooker's number 6. You look at the top 10 at lightweight, and Kevin Lee's at number 11 on the outside. Islam Makhachev is number 13, so if you're looking for him. But Diego Ferreira is 9 after Raging Al number 10. Felder's 8, Dos Anjos 7, Hooker 6, El Kukui 5, McGregor 4, Charles Oliveira 3, Poirier 2, Justin Gaethje 1, and Khabib, of course, is the champ not formally retired. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that division shakes out this year. This will tell you a lot, this fight card, McGregor, Poirier, and Chandler Felder. But when you look at, or Chandler and Hooker, rather, when you look at Chandler, I mean, he's been around a long time. His second fight was on Strikeforce Challengers back in 2009. Then he was in Strikeforce. So Strikeforce fans, he fought Sal Woods. Then he went to Bellator. And he went on a nice run to start his career with a whole bunch of wins in a row, including Eddie Alvarez and Patricky Pitbull Freire, not Patricio, Patricky. And then David Rickles, who obviously has been a big-time performer in Bellator. But then he had a 3-fight losing streak in 2013 and 14. Eddie Alvarez and 2 to Will Brooks. Ripped off 4 wins in a row, including another one over Patricky Ferrer and David Rickles. Then Benson Henderson came over. He won a split decision over Bendo. Then he lost that Brent Primus fight. And his only loss since then has been to Patricio Pitbull, because he avenged the loss to Brent Primus, and he's got Patricio Pitbull, who beat him in May of 2019, first round TKO, and then he beat Sidney Outlaw and Benson Henderson. But Mike Chandler at 21-5 and Hooker at 20-9, that's a lot of cage time for each fighter. 2 pros, 2 highly ranked guys, and you're going to see a hungry, and it's been a long time coming, right? I mean, how long have we said, Jeff, hey, when will Mike Chandler possibly make it over to the UFC? This was the time they were able to make it happen.
Yeah, and I've been looking forward to that because he did dominate Bellator when he got there. And then, he ran into some things in the last recent years. But Chandler's a tough guy, man. I mean, he's a tough guy. Like I said, what I like about this matchup is nobody wants to fight a Michael Chandler. Nobody wants to fight a Dan Hooker. And they're fighting each other. Yeah, that's a service to everybody in the division because those are tough outs. Both of those guys are very tough outs. Nobody wants to fight them unless it's a number 1 contender fight. You just don't want to fight that guy for no reason. There's got to be something big on the line, and that's for both of them. And so for them to be fighting each other on that co-main event, and then the main event being what it is, yeah, the lightweight division picture is going to come into super focus after this event. We're going to know whether or not Khabib's coming back. We're going to know who's the next contender. Or what I think is probably going to happen is we're going to have a little 4-man tournament to crown a new champion. But that will also be exciting, But the lightweight division,
you mean these 4, division, not these 4. No, yes, sorry, no. Jeff. These 4 guys, no.
Kind of starting with these 4, yeah.
Starting with these 4, okay.
Yeah, starting with these 4, and the winners fight for the vacant belt if Khabib doesn't come back. Yeah, I kind of look at next week's this weekend's event as the start of a 4-man tournament.
So you would put Hooker or Chandler and let them leapfrog Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje and get a title shot?
Justin Gaethje, I don't feel in the title picture right now. So I'm just going to remove him.
But he hasn't lost to anyone but Khabib. He shouldn't be in there if Khabib's
lost to Poirier. He lost to Poirier.
Yeah, he did. A couple years ago, he lost to Poirier.
And so I don't feel like he has the stake, that the other ones have. Oliveira's the wild card. Oliveira, he's the wild card. And also a guy nobody wants to fight unless there's a lot on the line. But I kind of look at it that way. Yeah, I think that Michael Chandler comes right into the UFC, and he's one of the guys vying for that shot at the title. I think a Hooker's ranked high enough and done enough as of late to where he could go in there. Charles Oliveira is the wild card. That's the one. Because I don't have a problem with Hooker or Chandler leapfrogging anybody except Charles Oliveira. He's the one that I don't know what to do with, But I can tell you, Conor probably doesn't want to fight Charles Oliveira. I think that he's the worst matchup out of everybody in that division for him.
Without a doubt, man. I think that you nailed it. I probably wouldn't have Hooker or Chandler leapfrog. I actually think that Conor he thinks he could beat anybody, and we have some good comments coming to the chat. I'm going to get a couple of them in a minute, but the worst matchup for Conor besides Khabib in that division looks like it would be Oliveira for sure. You got, I mean, I love that point, Jeff, that you just made. And I also think Mike Chandler with his wrestling is tough for Conor McGregor. And I think Chandler's right. He matches up well against him. But I think Conor against Hooker, Conor against Poirier, as we'll see this Saturday, you know, Conor against any of those other guys at the top of the division, I like Conor's chances. And I think Oliveira is that one wild card, man. He can beat you. He's so good on the ground. And he's very good on the feet. And again, 7 wins in a row. He's done it in a variety of fashions. So real quick, I want to hit a couple of the comments. Thanks for being in the chat with us today. We got MTDYL911 says Chandler's going to go for a takedown and eat a knee. Hooker by KO. It could possibly happen. What are we going to say? Josh Yolzar says, what's this? It's Thursday. Well, actually, it's Wednesday. Not sure where you are, but it's Wednesday. And it's a Wednesday midweek fight card. And Jeff, I guess that illustrates your point. Wait, what's this? What's going on? Someone says Chiesa's going to lose. UFC review. No, this is not a UFC review. Actually, so in the octagon over in Abu Dhabi, Viviane Araújo. Wait, how do I say this? No, buffer got me. Hold on, Jeff. Viviane Araújo picked up a unanimous decision win, 30-27 times 2 and 30-26 over Roxanne Modafferi. And then we got Ike Villanueva, and I've got to get the pronunciation from Bruce on this one too. Is it Vinicius Mahera is my guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Here's the official introductions. I'll tell you in a minute.
Yeah. The ladies' fight just got over. Roxanne lost. Roxanne's a legend, like I said, but she's struggled lately putting together a win streak. It's win one, lose one, win one, lose one, win one, lose one. She's been around a long time, and that could have been one of the last times we see her in the octagon. Honestly, her career is not going towards a title, and so the UFC is going to have to make a decision with her. I love Roxanne Modafferi, you know, but you can't keep losing fights and stay in the UFC.
All right, so we got it. It's Vinicius. I was right. And it's Mahera. Vinicius Mahera. So he's fighting right now against Isaac Villanueva. And then you got the Alves fight, and then Magny and Chiesa in the main event. Oh, it's 8:08. Josh is in New Zealand, 8:08 a.m. on Thursday. Very cool. Thanks, Josh, for joining us all the way from New Zealand. So what do you think about Hooker, Josh, while you're in the chat? Put something up there. What do you think is going to happen with your guy, Dan Hooker, on Saturday night? And which is really Sunday in New Zealand. So hopefully he'll have some good thoughts on that fight. And we got Jeff in Connecticut says he's taking Poirier, American Top Team, baby, with an exclamation point. And that's a great gym. I mean, you think of the fighters coming out of there and people who train there, Jeff. But it's going to be, I mean, a lot of people are taking Poirier. And again, he's plus 1,100 to win by submission. So Justin Dubois says,
right?
I think, real quick, Jeff, I want to get this. Justin Dubois says Oliveira and Gaethje should fight. You want to see Oliveira and Gaethje?
That's a tough fight for Gaethje, man. I mean, because of the rankings, that I'm fine with that fight. You know, but I think that's I wouldn't take that fight coming off of a loss if I'm Gaethje. Gaethje has to get a win. You know, Gaethje's next fight has to be a win. And if I'm Gaethje and I'm looking, I need to get a win, Charles Oliveira is not where I go to pick up a win. And so while I agree from a fan perspective, yes, that fight makes sense. I don't know if it makes sense for Justin Gaethje. Makes perfect sense for Charles Oliveira, though. You know, but I don't know if it makes sense for Justin Gaethje.
No, and you know what? If what you're saying is true, or what you're saying ends up happening, and the winner of Chandler Hooker fights the winner of Conor Poirier for Khabib's belt, if Khabib's not there, and of course if Khabib fights again, he'll fight the winner of Poirier and McGregor. It seems like there's nobody else where he would even fight, but that leaves Oliveira and Gaethje as the odd men out. So that's the matchup that would be available if Hooker, unless you said Gaethje Poirier loses or McGregor loses and you have Gaethje fight Conor or Gaethje fight Poirier again, rematch of that close fight from 2018. If Conor loses to Poirier, I would make Conor Gaethje right after that. Why not? Conor and Gaethje, can you imagine that fight? Those two guys unloading on one another? I mean, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, now see, the way this all plays out is going to have a huge bearing on what happens. You know, first of all, we don't know if Khabib's coming back. He might come back, and then he's going to fight the winner of Poirier and Conor. That's just what's going to happen. If Khabib doesn't come back, and let's say Conor wins, well, I think that Gaethje, even off of a loss, could fight Conor because that's the fight everybody wants to see because we know it's going to be fireworks. We know it's going to be bananas, right? And so I feel like that opens a door for Gaethje just because of his fighting style. But yeah, it's gonna determine. Of course, if Poirier wins, then I don't know what happens. Maybe Charles Oliveira gets a title fight then. Right against Poirier. I'm not sure, but depending on who wins that fight, it's going to determine the outcome because Conor McGregor matchup with Gaethje is a hell of a lot better for aesthetics on TV and everything, and plays out than say Conor and Chandler.
Yeah, and I know Gaethje just fought for the title. Justin Du Bois says Gaethje just fought for the title and should be fighting someone in the top 5. And since everyone else is booked, it only makes sense for him to fight Oliveira. And when you think about Oliveira, I mean, he had a bunch of losses back in 2015 to 17 against Max Holloway and Anthony Pettis and Ricardo the Bully Lamas and Paul Felder, TKO'd him. That was his last loss. He's won, 7 in a row? Now it's 8 after Tony Ferguson. So 7 in a row going into the Kukui fight. He started out with, Clay Guida and Christos Giagos and then Jim Miller and David Tamer and Nick Lentz. Those are all fights he should win. Jared Gordon. He beat Jared Gordon. So really, he beat Kevin Lee. Now remember, Kevin Lee was coming off the destruction of Gregor Gillespie, and then he dominated Tony Ferguson. But to put too much stock into Oliveira right now, to rate him too highly based on the win over Kevin Lee, who's been inconsistent up and down his whole career, and Tony Ferguson. There's the one that I'm looking at. Justin Gaethje destroyed Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson cut weight twice before that fight. Even before then, he did not look like the dominating El Kukui we had seen before. So are we putting too much stock in these wins over Ferguson for Oliveira and Gaethje? I mean, that's a fair question to ask. Are they being given too much credit for beating Tony Ferguson at this stage the way they did? Is Oliveira really a legit top-level title contending fighter, or was Kukui on the downward slide and Oliveira is a legit top 5 to 6, 7, 8 fighter in the division? I don't think we have those answers yet.
Well, I don't think Kukui is on a downward slide. I mean, it's just 2 losses, right? I mean, that's a guy who stayed at the top
really
of the division.
bad ones, though. He got dominated by both, big time.
Yep. 2 really bad losses, but they happen. They happen. El Kukui has stayed on the top of the division for so long that the UFC's lined him up to fight Khabib 5 times. He's not somebody who nobody can question Tony Ferguson, in my opinion. Now, if you want to say the last loss to Charles, that maybe Tony wasn't the same because of the Gaethje loss, man, I'll entertain that conversation for sure, because he took so much damage to Gaethje.
Yeah.
But Gaethje's win over Tony is legit. He did that. And Tony can say I cut weight twice and all of that. It doesn't matter, man. Justin beat him down. I mean, beat him down. And then he got beat down by Charles Oliveira. But if we don't measure you on beating Tony Ferguson, then what's the litmus test? I mean, basically, it's Khabib, Conor, and Tony in that division. That's who we measure everybody against. And so, yeah, I think that Charles Oliveira is ready to answer that question. The question is Charles Oliveira a championship level fighter? And the only way to determine that is to give him a championship level fight. And I think he's earned that. I just don't know how it's going to all play out and who's going to end up getting in there, because right now, I don't know. It just depends on who wins and what the stylistic matchups are, because the UFC is not going to want to put Oliveira in there with Conor if Conor wins this for the vacant title. I don't think that they'll want to do that. Then you're going to see Oliveira definitely fight a top 5 guy, right? He's going to fight a top 5 guy. It's not going to be, he's going to fight somebody that's not Conor. I think he's got to fight Gaethje. Yeah. And I'm not saying the UFC is protecting Conor at all. That's not what I'm saying. They're just going to make Charles Oliveira really earn it if he's going to get the shot at Conor. And then probably do the Gaethje matchup against. I mean, like I said, if Conor wins, I could absolutely see Gaethje getting a shot at the title that he lost to Khabib, coming off of a loss. I mean, both him and Conor have lost to Khabib. If Khabib's retired, then me and Conor should be fighting. Just Gaethje, they should be fighting for the title. I could see that argument, and I think the UFC would go that route just because of the excitement level of that fight. Holy crap! Can you imagine Conor McGregor and Gaethje throwing down? Holy crap!
Oh my God! Incredible, yeah, and McGregor Chandler would be a war too. McGregor Hooker,
Mhm.
but definitely the fight everyone wants to see, Jeff, without a doubt, is Conor Khabib too. And Khabib's waiting in the wings. He's not going to be there for the fight. He's going to be in Vegas. He's leaving Fight Island today. His cousin fought earlier and won, and he's undefeated at 13-0. His cousin put on a great performance today on this fight card, and it was one of the first fights. Umar Nurmagomedov defeated Sergey Morozov by technical submission, rear naked choke. Big surprise there, being a Nurmagomedov, right? But when you look at that division, man, I got to get your thoughts on this. And I could spend all day talking about this stuff. And we're going to do our preview show on Friday. We got a whole bunch of programming wall to wall here on MMA Weekly, getting you ready for UFC 257 and Red Panty Night for all of us, especially Dustin Poirier. He's going to make a bunch of money for this fight. But perfect card for Chandler and Hooker to be showcased on, for Chandler to make his debut. But I have to think, no matter what, the ultimate goal for Dana, for all of us as fight fans, is to have Conor beat Poirier and Conor Khabib too, be the one for Khabib to come back and take the shot at 30-0. I love what you said the other day, because everyone's thinking it's got to be Conor. You're thinking Khabib would rather fight Poirier again and think he earned it more. We know it's not going to be Oliveira. So if Khabib does come back, it has to be against Conor or Poirier. I happen to think Khabib is going to come back and fight one more fight either way. But dream scenario for everyone involved is Conor Khabib too. So then Poirier's coming off a loss. You don't know what's going to happen in the Chandler Hooker fight. If Chandler, being a former champ and a really well-known fighter, beats Hooker, let's say, Conor wins, Chandler wins. Khabib comes back and fights Conor. Who does Chandler fight next? Is that Gaethje? Is it Oliveira? I mean, you have a lot of options if that's the case at the top of that division. A lot of options.
Yeah, I think that the division gets more interesting with Khabib removed from it, right? Because I don't think that Conor's going to fare any better in a rematch with Khabib than he did in the first fight. I don't think anybody's touching Khabib, or right now anyway. And so I feel like when Khabib's out of the picture, then all of a sudden our excitement level rises a little bit. Of course we want to see Conor and Khabib a rematch. The UFC wants to see it for the revenue. Conor wants to see it for the revenue and his legacy. He needs that for his legacy, and maybe Khabib's looking at that for his 30-0. That the perfect win to go out on. But if he doesn't come back, then all of a sudden that division's just crazy, right? It's just crazy.
Yeah.
The matchups, and so I don't know. I'm not so that Khabib's coming back. I don't know that he's coming back. I don't know if anything matters this weekend. When it comes to him coming back, I don't know. I haven't seen any indication from him to kind of tell me that, man, he's looking at coming back. Other than he met with Dana, but he was in Abu Dhabi to corner today. He's cornering today, and then he's flying out tonight. So it wasn't really a business meeting, right? He was going to be there, and then he met with Dana, and that meeting was maybe. And so I don't know if Khabib's coming back. I would love to see Khabib come back. I want to see Khabib fight often. I just don't know that we're going to see that. But man, you never know. I mean, if McGregor wins, that's the fight, and Dana's going to have to use those little things, right? Like you just brought up, Khabib is cornering a person. Did you say it's his cousin?
Yep, Umar.
Okay, so there's a guy that we can put on a main card. We can do this. There's ways that the UFC matchmakers can sweeten the deal for Khabib that has nothing to do with Khabib. Maybe Khabib wants to help his cousin get on a main card of a pay-per-view, right? Well, all he has to do is come back and fight. We can make that happen. Hell, Khabib, there could be a Nurmagomedov main event and co-main event if you want to play hardcore. Let's just face it, right? That's the reality of it. It's Khabib's holding all the cards right now.
He's holding all the cards, and I wonder, does he stop at 29 or look for that 30? And his father wanted him to get to 30. He promised his mother he wouldn't fight again without his father. He got very emotional last time. I think we're going to see Conor Khabib too. I'm the eternal optimist. But let's say this, Jeff. Conor wins. Khabib steps aside and says, no, I'm not coming back. I'm not giving you the rematch. I already beat you. And then it opens it up for the title fight after that. You're saying you'd rather see the winner of Hooker and Chandler fight Conor for the title. I say I'd rather see Justin Gaethje, and Gaethje gets a mulligan, if you want to call it that, for the Khabib loss because it's Khabib and he beat everybody else. So Poirier would have just lost to Conor, and the title fight, the very next title fight could be Conor and Gaethje, or Conor and Hooker versus or Chandler. I think Conor Gaethje is the fight to make on almost every level there, and that's interesting. Not
I think
Oliveira,
it's
and everyone's going to bitch about Oliveira, but Oliveira has to beat another very top level person in my mind before he just gets a title shot. Because I'm sorry, beating Kevin Lee and a fading El Kakui is not title worthy. I'm just going to say it. I don't think Oliveira's done enough. I think he has to beat another top level guy first.
I don't know. I don't know that Tony Ferguson's fading. I don't know. I agree. I think that if Khabib retires and Conor wins, the fight that they're going to try to put together is Gaethje. That's the most exciting fight. That's the one they're going to do, and they're going to do it with Gaethje off of a loss. And they're going to say his loss was to Khabib, and Conor's loss was to Khabib, and now that Khabib's gone, we're going to crown the real champion now, and it's going to be. That's how they'll work that. Charles Oliveira, I don't know what. I have a hard time with that. The guy's on a 7-fight winning streak, and Conor McGregor's getting ready to get a title fight and hadn't fought in a year. Not to mention he's coming off of a loss, and so we've got to be real careful when we hold Charles Oliveira to a different standard that we hold Conor McGregor to or Poirier to. I think Oliveira's there. The biggest thing the biggest obstacle in Oliveira's way is the names, right? Conor McGregor's a huge name. Justin Gaethje's a huge name. Everybody knows who Poirier is. Yeah, that's his biggest obstacle. But like you said, you want him to get one more win over a top guy, so then the Oliveira name becomes a household name. And I get that. I think the best thing Oliveira has going for him as far as a title shot goes is Khabib coming back and saying, I want to fight Oliveira.
Well, yeah, and he doesn't have the sizzle, he doesn't have the name, but when you fight Khabib or Conor, you don't need to because they have it. And I know what you're saying about Oliveira. I'm not trying to diss him or take him down. I just think his wins and the people he's beaten are not worthy of a title shot. I just don't think in a division that stacked, I don't think he is. I think he'd have to beat, say, a Chandler or a Hooker. Give him the winner of that one, and then that's a title eliminator, right? And Conor gets it because he's Conor, and you know that, and that's why Conor gets it. He certainly hasn't done anything to earn a title shot in the 55-pound division in a long time because he has his fight against Cerrone. He was at 170. Last time he fought at 55, he was ended by Khabib, and he's only had 2 fights at that weight class, but he is Conor McGregor. If you were going by just performance and what they've done in recent fights, you'd have Gaethje, you'd have Oliveira, you'd have Poirier if he beats Conor, and of course you have Khabib. So while the division is loaded, Hooker's coming off a loss, Chandler's new to the promotion, there really isn't that clear-cut guy who you could say he's the absolute guy who deserves a title shot. There is not, believe it or not, as we talk about this, there's not that guy. Not one of those fighters can sit there and say, hey, I clearly am the guy who deserves the next shot. Unless Poirier beats Conor, to me, he's the only one with that claim.
Yeah, and Conor will be able to make that claim if he beats Poirier, and that's why that fight's happening.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I mean, El Kakui was the number 1 contender the whole time, right? I mean, he had that spot on lockdown, and now that he's lost the 2 fights, it's all wide open. We don't know who the number 1 contender is. There's 3 or 4 or 5 guys that could get a title fight depending on the way this puzzle plays out, which is what makes that division so exciting. The light heavyweight fight taking place in Abu Dhabi ended in a vicious knockout, though. I did just catch that. But yeah, man, I mean, the lightweight division is exciting right now for multiple reasons. I mean, we're talking about, we've got all these scenarios that we get to talk about. Is Khabib coming back, and if this guy wins, if that guy wins, and does this guy deserve it? It's good, man. I mean, like I said, the lightweight division is exciting right now, and this week it's going to come really laser focused in on that 155-pound division. We're going to have a number 1 contender. We just have to decide whether or not we're going to have a champion. We don't know if we're going to have a champion next week, but we will have a number 1 contender next week.
Without a doubt, we will have a number 1 contender next week, and we'll have a couple of guys laying claim where Chandler and Hooker, the winner of that one. Yeah. I can't wait. I mean, we're talking about this, and we're going through a million different scenarios. If Khabib comes back and Poirier wins, I mean, there's just so many different things that you have to take into consideration when you're looking at this division and the fighters at the top, and Tony is on his way down. JC Mata says Tony's on his way. Gaethje beat the crap out of him. It should have been stopped a bunch of times. And Jeff, you said you thought he came back too soon. Oliveira dominated him in that fight, almost snapped his arm off in round number 1. And then throughout the rest of that fight, Tony Ferguson not himself. So I love Tony Ferguson. Don't get me wrong. But I just don't think he's been as great as everyone thought he was the last couple of years. And I think it was exposed against Gaethje and Oliveira. And I think Father Time has a way of doing that. We didn't see Tony against Khabib, unfortunately. They were the two best. It never happened. Khabib's record, I said this on the last show. When you look at Khabib's legacy, this is why I don't put him with John Jones and GSP and Anderson Silva, even though he's undefeated. Those guys all fought, I believe, in the career and body of work, much tougher competition than Khabib and Magomedov did. So I think any of these guys in that division, you can look at their record and their past and say, hey, there's this, there's that. He hasn't fought enough people. He hasn't beaten enough big names. I said it about Oliveira. I might as well say it about, the only one to me, and Poirier's fought everybody, and Gaethje's fought everybody in recent years too. But you look at Conor's resume, he does have bigger and better wins than any of those guys, all of them. You look at Holloway, Poirier, if he beats him again, that's Poirier twice. Eddie Alvarez, the champ, he's beaten Nate Diaz. Those are better wins on paper than any of these guys have at the top of that division, even though his track record recently, he hasn't fought a lot. And some of those wins were a long time ago, and they were at 145. But purely based on the level of wins, the names of the fighters he's beaten, his record is better than any of these guys.
I'd have to look at the record because I don't know. We sit here and say, so-and-so beat a washed-up Aldo, but then give Conor credit for beating the washed-up Aldo. And then, who have we – Conor's beat who's there. I want to be careful not to get into that comparison because you beat who's in your era, right? John Jones came around at a great time where there was a transition from the old school legends to him, and he was able to beat all of those champions. But at the same time, was Shogun at his peak when John Jones beat him? Hell no. No. Was Machida? I don't know. And so
Vitor definitely wasn't.
But Jones beat the best people in his era. And Conor did the same thing, and Aldo did the same thing, and so did Khabib. It's not Khabib's fault that the lightweight division, whenever he came around, wasn't what the lightweight division was, a couple of years before or whatever. So I don't want to fault him for that. But Conor's beaten everybody that they put in front of him except for Nate Diaz and Khabib. And so, but Nate Diaz has never really been that elite champion guy.
No.
Nate Diaz is fun to watch. And I love Nate Diaz, man. I'll watch a Nate Diaz fight. But to consider him up there with Khabib and those guys is just not that's not reality. But Conor took that on a short notice fight, and he went up a weight division to do it, and he got beat.
Dos Anjos, yeah. Yep.
And
Dos
he got
Anjos
beat.
wants the title shot again. Dos Anjos sitting there at number 7. There's a good fight for a Mike Chandler. There's a good fight for an Oliveira. Make Oliveira beat Rafael Dos Anjos if he wants a title shot. I'm fine with that. Just make him beat somebody else. I don't think they're going to make that fight because there's not a lot to gain. Oh, against Rafael.
I think that's who they should match Tony up against because Tony was at the top of the division. He can't fall
I love that
far.
one, Jeff. Yeah.
But, so right there, the 7th ranked guy. Now, if he beats Tony, Tony is absolutely on the decline, and nobody could even argue about that. But that's a good opportunity for Tony to get a foothold on the decline, on the slide down the rankings, or it's an opportunity for RDA to be saying I'm a contender now. So like I said, that division's wide open. It once Khabib's removed from it, but you got Khabib at the top. That division's not wide open at all. Khabib still has it on lockdown. But we'll know this week. That's the good thing. We're going to know Monday or Tuesday whether or not Khabib's coming back, and we're going to know who the number 1 contender is. And then we're going to be talking about what's next for Poirier off of a loss, or what's next for Conor off of a loss. That conversation's going to happen. But I'll agree with you. Conor's record's not bad. The biggest fault I have on Conor's record is he's never defended a title. That would be, but he was chasing multiple titles. I get it. He had the one
and Floyd Mayweather money,
Yeah, so I get it. It's not like he was ducking those fights. Other opportunities came along for him to build up his brand, and he did it. But now that all that's over, I'd like to see Conor defend that belt. which is sort of what this is going to happen on Saturday, in my opinion. It's sort of a defense of that title belt, just with Khabib removed, you know. And so we'll see what Conor's able to do now that he's back, now that fans are back, now that he's going to be actually fighting more often. Because Conor's got that weird, you know, he came around, he was so popular. So you give him the titles in 2 divisions, you know, you give him the opportunities, all these opportunities. And then the Floyd fight happened. So he's gone for a year doing that, you know, and then COVID hits. He's supposed to fight 3 or 4 times. He fights once. And so Conor, it's just, you know, life happened. And so I'm not blaming Conor for not defending those titles, because I think in 2020 he would have, or he would have lost trying to, you know. And so Conor is a different animal altogether, just because life circumstances and the opportunities, he couldn't pass those opportunities up. You can't pass those opportunities up. But it's still a knock on his legacy. He hasn't defended a title.
He hasn't defended a title, and if he wins, you got to make the Conor Khabib 2 fight. And outside of Conor in that division, nothing really excites me for a 30-0 legacy fight for Khabib, because he's already beaten Poirier. Oliveira does nothing for me when I look at a matchup. Oliveira and Khabib, it doesn't excite me one bit. It just doesn't. Chandler against Khabib, nothing. Gaethje again. It has to be Conor to me, or Khabib won't fight. But Jeff, you said he would want to fight, maybe fight Poirier again. But let's say Conor wins and Khabib doesn't come back. Conor Gaethje, we talked about, could be a good title fight. There's also 170 for Conor. If Conor loses, there's the Diaz trilogy, and we said this the other day. You could have that fight anytime. You could have it 3 years from now, and it wouldn't affect the draw. It wouldn't affect the sizzle or the star power in that fight. You always have great options with Conor McGregor, but if you're just talking title fight, Conor Khabib, and I do believe Conor would have an outstanding chance to win that fight. I think people who are in the chat writing right now, no one can beat Khabib. I don't believe Khabib Nurmagomedov is unbeatable. I don't believe he's easily beatable, obviously, but I do think Conor McGregor, at his best, focus coming in, would have an excellent chance of beating Khabib. I think Oliveira would have a decent chance, although, again, I want to see him prove how good he is against a better opponent before I see that fight. No, Colby can't come down to fight Khabib. That'd be a fun matchup to watch. Colby Covington and Khabib Nurmagomedov. But no, RDA and Oliveira, also a good fight. Good point, Justin. But so many options. And obviously, if you're Dana White, you're just praying that Conor wins and Khabib comes back, and then you make that fight. So then Poirier is coming off a loss. You got Gaethje sitting there. You got Oliveira sitting there. You got the Hooker Chandler winner sitting there. I love your thought, Jeff, of Tony against RDA. I think Tony RDA is a great fight to make. So you're going to see a lot of very high-level fights at 155 the rest of this year. But right now, it's so wide open, and we've been talking about this for, 40 minutes, Jeff? There are so many different scenarios to play with and to run through in this division right now. I mean, it's just, man, it's awesome. I mean, who's going to step up and make a run at that crown? Because whether Khabib comes back or not, it's only for one fight. So someone else will have that belt this time next year, regardless of who it is. It's not going to be Khabib.
Yeah, he's just looking at coming back one time. Yeah, man. I mean, there's tons of matchups in that division, tons of them. You know, we're just talking about, we haven't even got past 7 yet. You know, we're talking about the 6th and up. You know, there's guys that are ranked 10th and 12th and 13th that are going to rise up this year and are going to become contenders. That division is sitting in a really good spot right now, whether Khabib comes back or not. You know, but yes, the matchup everybody wants to see is Conor McGregor versus Khabib. Can Conor McGregor beat Khabib? He's got to sleep him. If he don't sleep Khabib, then Khabib's going to beat him. That's the end of it. You're not getting a decision over Khabib.
Though, to entice Khabib, Jeff, you already talked. I love your thought. Now, the fight's got to be in Moscow, right? Or somewhere in Russia. It'd be amazing if they did it in Dagestan. That'd be awesome. Like, Khabib's like, I'm only doing it in Dagestan, Dana. The UFC will build a damn arena there to do that. There's no doubt. But maybe they say, hey, it's in Moscow. Maybe they say your cousin can be the co-main event. Maybe they help Khabib build his promotion over there. What else would you throw in there if it's not the money? And DC said it earlier. Someone put it in the chat. $3 million makes you rich in Dagestan, right? It's not the money. It's not the accolades. The usual things that work on, especially American fighters, let's be real, have no bearing on Khabib. What is that trigger point for him? I believe it's 30-0. I believe it's because he told his father, and his father told him he wanted to be 30-0. And I think his father would love the opportunity to see him fight Conor again. Now, if his dad were still here, because he didn't get to corner him in the first Conor fight, to have his dad in his corner when he fought Conor, but he doesn't have that either. So I'm just wondering, other than that 30 mark that he talked to his father about and doing it specifically for that, Is it building his fight promotion over there? Is it building some of the younger fighters he has under his wing instead of including his cousin? These are the buttons that Dana White has to find and push to get him to fight Conor McGregor again.
Yeah, you're going to have to do all those things, I would think. But you got to be careful that Conor doesn't get wind of the deal you're cutting Khabib, because Conor also has a promotion that he was trying to promote. And he's also got his own liquor brand, and Conor is not to be outdone by anybody, And so it's a tightrope that Dana White is going to have to walk to make that fight happen, because if you concede with Khabib on certain things, Conor's going to want the same thing. And so you're going to have this back and forth. Or you just keep the negotiations completely hush hush. You sign the deal, 2 separate deals, and don't let anybody know what the hell's in them until it's over. But yeah, those are the things he's going to have to do to get Khabib back. Your cousin's trying to be a star. He's trying to rise up and make a career out of this. We can help that. You're trying to start a fight promotion. We can help that. You have training partners that you care about and that you like who are wanting opportunities. We can help that out. The UFC can sweeten the deal a lot of ways. But traditionally, you kind of pressure these people into it, and you can't do that with Khabib. So you have to go that different route. You got to sweeten it up to make it worth his while for everybody around him, because Khabib does like doing things for people. He does. He's a good guy, and so I feel like there's the door. There's the door. Well, you've got these young fighters that you train and that you train with. Your cousin wants to be a fighter, and this fight promotion you're trying to do. All of those things the UFC can make happen. All you got to do is step back in the octagon one more time.
All right, so the co-main's about to start in Abu Dhabi, and then the main event, Chiesa and Magny. So, Jeff, other than Conor Khabib, and I don't even know that Conor Khabib is your number one, so I don't just want to assume. And, I think that Kendrick Prasad says it best in the chat. He says, hey, Conor versus Khabib, that is all we want. Simple. That's every MMA fan in the world for the most part. But other than Conor and Khabib, which is my number one that I want to see, which possible matchup would you like to see other than that one? Mine would be Conor versus Gaethje. Mine would be, if I don't see Conor Khabib, I want to see Conor Gaethje, and that happens whether Conor wins or loses. I think that could happen. And other than that, maybe Poirier Gaethje too. Maybe, it would be good. I would really like to see Chandler Poirier too. I think that'd be good if Chandler can beat Hooker.
Yeah. I mean, my second fight, and it might actually be my first fight, because I think that Conor and Gaethje is exciting, right? I don't know that Conor and McGregor or Conor and Khabib will be exciting. I can guarantee you Justin Gaethje and Conor is going to be exciting, unless it ends in the first exchange, which both of those guys could do. But I want to see Conor deal with those leg kicks. I want to see Conor deal with that relentless style of Gaethje. And then I want to see Gaethje deal with that precision striking and punching power of McGregor. The reason why everybody wants to see it's because of Conor fans. That's kind of the way I feel about it. Maybe I'm wrong, and Khabib fans just want to see him beat up Conor again. Maybe that never gets old. As an old school Chuck Liddell fan, it never got old seeing him beat up Tito. And so maybe it's that deal. That's the fight everybody wants to make, because that's a seller. That's the one that's going to sell the most tickets, the most pay-per-view. That's going to get the biggest buzz. But I like the other fight better, Gaethje and Conor, just because of the fireworks that were going to happen, and somebody's getting knocked out in that thing. And I would really be interested in Khabib and Oliveira on the ground. I would be interested in that. Now, I don't know if I care for it to be a title fight, and I definitely don't want that to be Khabib's last fight. I mean, because that's what we're talking about now. We're talking about Khabib's last and final fight, and so that does change things up. I'm not just picking fights for Khabib. I'd like to see Khabib fight Oliveira and watch that thing go to the ground. I would like to see Khabib fight Chandler and see how that matchup works out. But we're talking about one final fight. Yeah, for one final fight, it's got to be Conor, unless Conor loses, and then I don't know. I don't know what they do. Poirier,
really, Alves tried a spinning back fist. Khabib Poirier 2 doesn't really excite me. I hate to say it. I like Dustin Poirier. It makes it seem like I don't when I say things like that. The other things that I think of, and someone put it in the chat, Conor Max 2. Max comes up, but Max is going to be busy down at 45 trying to get that belt back, so I don't think we're going to see that, but that would be a lot of fun to see Conor fight Max Holloway again, especially off that performance from Holloway against Calvin Kattar, and anyone will fight Conor. Max would take that fight in a heartbeat, moving up to 55 for that payday and that challenge. Holloway said, bring me the best, whoever you think is the best, line them all up. The other wild card here, and especially I think if Conor loses, is when do you do the Diaz fight? But also Conor against Masvidal has been floated out there so many times, and we've been teased by this fight. That is one, Jeff, at 170 that I would love to see. Remember, Conor's no lock to keep fighting at 55. Conor versus Street Jesus would be amazing as well. So we can throw that in there, and there'll never be a shortage of guys lining up to get their shot at Conor, because every single time it's red panty night when you fight Conor McGregor. So don't ask me why I have red panties in the studio. It's a prop. Actually, it's for a friend of mine who has their own business, and I'm doing a little video for them later, and the name of their product is called Red Panties. It's a supplement. So that's why I have the red panties there, but that's what it is right here. Anytime anyone, I mean, you're making your life, your wife wears the nicest thing she's ever seen and you've ever seen her in, because it's money night when you're fighting Conor McGregor, and you never run out of opponents to line up for the Notorious. And Conor versus Wonder Boy, Jordan Williams. Ooh, Conor versus Wonder Boy. See, now we're talking, Jeff. Now we're talking. I like that one too.
I like that one, but Conor's going to get kicked a lot.
Conor's going to get kicked a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if he wins that. I don't. He might very well win it, but he's going to have a reach disadvantage, and he's going to be at a disadvantage when it comes to the kicks. And I think that Wonder Boy controls the distance as well as Conor does, maybe even better. That's a tough matchup. But you're right. It's endless for Conor. He is not bound to the 155-pound division. You could see Max. Max was injured in their first fight. Max could absolutely go up and have a rematch
with him.
Yeah,
get finished.
and he went the distance with it. Yeah, and so and that would be a fun fight. What they have to worry about with Street Jesus is the press conferences, because that if Conor gets close to him, he's going to get a 3-piece and a Coke, right? And then how's Conor going to respond to a 3-piece and a Coke? I'm telling you, that thing may never make it to the octagon. We may have suspension.
I just want to see the press conferences, man. What a great point, Jeff Kane. This is why you're so brilliant. Just let me get to those those press conferences alone would be just unbelievably priceless. There he is right there, Street Jesus. I was there for that one. That's actually at the McGregor Cowboy Media Day when he was thinking of launching his tequila brand at the press conference, and the UFC wouldn't let him bring the bottle out, and he was pissed off. He did an appearance later at the Aria that day. But when you talk about Masvidal and the BMF fight against Diaz, and what he did against Ben Askren, he's been around so long, and he's at the money phase of his career. But we want to see him fight Colby. Bad matchup for Masvidal against Colby. Much better matchup for him against Conor. But make no mistake about it, Conor wants, and people in the chat are saying, hey, Conor versus Yair. Yair's suspended. We got to work that out. And he's got, some work to do before he gets up there. And that's also a different division. Yair would have to come up, or Conor is never going back to 145 again. But Conor is only wanting to do one thing right now, and that is beat Poirier so he can get Khabib. He's going to do every single. I want to see Conor McGregor fly around the world chasing Khabib, trying to get him to fight him. If Khabib says no, I want to see the lengths that Conor McGregor will go to try to entice him to come back in. I mean, just think of that. That's going to be amazing too.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Conor responds if Khabib says no, I'm done, I'm not coming back. And I don't know, maybe Conor just lets it go, and then focuses on other matchups, or like you said, he chases him around the world, and and then we end up seeing this fight in a parking lot somewhere. I don't know what happens with him, but the matchups for Conor are endless. You can always do the Diaz matchup at any point. You can do that matchup in 5 years with both of them off of a 10 losing streak, and people will still pay to watch that fight. Put that in your back pocket, because there's no rush for that fight to happen. What I want to know is what sells more, Conor McGregor versus Masvidal or Conor McGregor versus Diaz? I think Masvidal does right now.
I think Masvidal does too. I like both of them. But I think Masvidal's a bigger seller than Diaz right now for Conor. Although it's a trilogy, I mean, there's a lot there. What about Conor Nick Diaz? I mean, Diaz. I mean, who knows if he's even going to fight Nick Diaz? But I don't know.
Might be biting
That'd be fun
a little
too.
more than Conor could chew, because that's got to be a 185-pound fight. I mean, not that. I mean, Nick's fought at 170, but he hasn't in a long time, and I think he's naturally a 185. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I say, Conor's good.
Got some good selling power.
Go
Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
No,
No,
I
I
was
thought you
saying
broke up
that
there. I was just saying someone in the chat said Conor's not fighting Wonder Boy because there's no star power. I think he has enough star power, Wonder Boy, and it's Conor. So anyone he fights he's gonna draw.
Wonder Boy has star power. He just, I mean, like I say, Conor,
Yeah.
the possibilities are endless. The possibilities are endless. I don't know. I think that's a tough matchup for him, Wonder Boy. Wonder Boy is a very, very skilled striker, and he's bigger, and he's got a reach advantage. I think that's a really tough matchup for Conor. Conor's got to be careful if he goes up to 170 on who he fights. Masvidal's not a big 170-pound guy. I mean, he fought a lot of his career at 155, and so there's fights that you can go up. And same with Nate, although Nate's considerably bigger than Conor when they fought, right? I mean, so Conor can't take those fights when people are talking about Wonder Boy and some of the top guys at 170 pounds. I just don't think Conor's big enough. I think that's where he runs into size. He's met the high end of what he can deal with. I think Conor can fight at 145 and 155 and some 170s, but you got to be careful which 170s you give him.
Yeah, interesting, man. What a crazy. And he said, unless it's for a title, this is what Conor has said, and I'm paraphrasing. He has said that unless it's for a title, he doesn't see the point for him and Diaz cutting down to 155 when they already fought twice at 170. I think Conor feels really comfortable at 170, but again, he wants Khabib. He's going to go to whatever lengths he can, and he's got to beat a great, great fighter on Saturday night in Dustin Poirier. We'll be streaming that one live right here for you on MMA Weekly. We'll give you our reactions during the fight. We'll talk about the ramifications and all those things, implications, any type of implications that we can talk about. But Jeff, as we look at this fight that's about to come up here, we're about to hit the main event in Abu Dhabi, and we're here on a Wednesday, and all we're doing is talking about Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, and the lightweight division. Khabib, is he coming back? But, it just goes to show you the whole entire world is talking about Conor right now. And whoever's not talking about Conor is talking about Khabib. You got a great fight card on Saturday night, but we have a really good main event coming up right now. And I think we definitely need to spend a little bit of time talking about Chiesa and Magny. It was supposed to be Edwards and Khamzat Chimaev, but when you're talking about Mike the Mav Chiesa, I mean, look, here's a guy who's been around a long time. He's 17-4. I mean, 17-4, and his losses are to Masvidal, Lozon, Kevin Lee, and Anthony Pettis. All right. And of those, 3 of them were submissions and 1 was a TKO. He's got some pretty good wins. He beat Condit. He beat Diego Sanchez on the retirement tour fights. And then he beat Rafael Dos Anjos in the fight that made Dos Anjos go back down to 155. But when you're talking about Magny, he was out for a long time. Very impressed with the way he was able to come back last year. And he ends up beating, he beats Lee. Remember, Leach just won his last fight this past Saturday, Li Jingliang. And then he beat Anthony Rocco Martin, and he beat Robbie Lawler. The unanimous decision win over Robbie Lawler on August 29th. So pretty good fight here, Magny and Chiesa.
Yeah, the move up to 170 was huge for Chiesa. He's looked like a different fighter ever since. All of a sudden, he keeps putting wins together. Neil is an incredibly well-rounded fighter all the way around. He's not like elite at anything, but he's really damn good at everything. And so, I mean, he's got a great jab. His striking's on point. He's good in the clinch. He's got good wrestling. He's got good submissions on the ground. He's an incredibly well-rounded guy. But Chiesa on the ground is also very skilled. I think that Neil's going to have a clear advantage on the feet, but we'll see because Chiesa, he's just looking better every fight.
Yeah, he is. And this is going to be interesting, too. Magny's coming back, and he's got some wins. So this isn't a title fight eliminator or even guys who are going to maybe eventually fight for a title, but it definitely has some play, in the division. And I think it's an entertaining main event. Stylistically, it's a decent fight. I think I like Chiesa. I would give Chiesa a little bit of an edge coming in. I don't know how you feel about that.
I'm giving the edge to Magny. I think that he's going to. I think his advantage in striking is going to show early. Now, I don't know what happens after Chiesa, because Chiesa, I think, is the better on the ground of the two. So this is going to be a good fight, man, and kind of the way it plays out. And Chiesa's not afraid to stand there and trade with people either. So this is going to be an entertaining fight. I don't know who's going to win. I'm going to give Neil a slight advantage because I think he's got speed and his striking's a little bit better.
Okay.
But you can't count Chiesa out. I mean, like I said, the change of weight classes changed Chiesa's career.
It really did, and as he's number 8, Magny's number 9, so it's a good matchup there in the rankings. And ahead of them, you have Damian Maya, Tyron Woodley, Wonderboy Thompson's at 5 still, Masvidal 4, Leon Edwards 3, Gilbert Burns 2, Covington 1, and then the champ is Kamaru, and we have Kamaru and Burns coming up in February. So let me see what I like JC Mata's chat question. So what's Colby's new promos going to be about now since Trump is out? The election rigged, and if he loses a fight by decision, now Colby, Nick versus Covington, Nick Diaz versus Covington in the chat. That's not bad. That's not bad.
No,
what else? Let me
that's not
see.
a bad fight. I like Kobe's chances. The Diaz brothers, the people who beat them are wrestlers who can take them down and hold them down, and so that's a bad matchup for Nick or Nate. You know.
How about one-handed Conor versus Jake Paul? That's in the chat too, Jeff. One-handed Conor versus Jake Paul.
What hand? What hand does he get? If he gets to keep his left hand, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, you got to keep his left hand. So let's see. No, the fight's on ESPN Plus, guys. Chiesa, Justin says Chiesa by rear naked. That's
I think
it.
that's a solid pick. I think that's a solid pick. That would be my prediction. Is I would say Neil Magny's going to win if it gets stopped early, or I think he can win a decision. If this fight goes to the ground, I think that Chiesa is going to have an advantage, and Neil's got to be real careful down there with him. And to kick off the co-main event, Alves looked phenomenal. Looked phenomenal in the co-main event.
The Haitian sensation. Yeah, Alves did look phenomenal. TKO win. Usually you're expecting to see a submission attempt or so out of him. But Neil Magny, since coming back last year, he's fighting out of Colorado, Elevation Fight Team with Gaethje and all those guys. And Kamaru Usman's been there. So obviously getting ready for this fight. Usman's getting ready for a fight. You got Gaethje. Magny's been, grappling, and he's been wrestling. He's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. So this is an interesting fight for him, and he is the guy. I mean, he is the respected guy in the gym. They call him the captain. He is a guy who literally has been around a long time. He's fought a lot of big name and really tough fighters. He took that time off, had some issues there, but man, it was almost 2 years on the shelf for him. And if you think back to his career, he's been pretty close a couple times to the top of the division. I remember his fight against Kelvin Gastelum. When Kelvin beat him by split decision. That was in November of 2015. Big win for Calvin. But look at Magny's losses, man. He's lost to, my guy Seth Baczynski beat him. Seth has a lot of really big wins. He's lost to Maya, Lorenz Larkin, Dos Anjos, Santiago Ponzinibbio. I can never say his name right 1,000 times. Ponzinibbio.
It looks crazy. Yeah, it's just that I've seen him fight a bunch, and so I know how they pronounce it. But like I said, the Ponzinibbio loss, that was, Santiago was ranked in the top 10 when that happened. And so you kind of wash that off. What I'll say about Neil Magny, I mean, he's got wins over Johnny Hendricks and Hector Lombard. I mean, Kelvin, he's got some big wins, but he's one of those fighters that what I was saying earlier, he's a tough out. Nobody wants to fight Neil Magny. It's just too tough of a fight to fight for the 10th ranking. Whenever you run into a guy that's as well-rounded as Neil Magny, it's usually like the number 5th or 4th ranked guy in the world, which is a testament of how deep this division is getting as well. But Neil's a tough out, and Chiesa is a tough out as well. These aren't easy fights for anybody.
No, and Chiesa came up as a welterweight when he got to the UFC, the Ultimate Fighter lightweight tournament. That's why he became a lightweight, and he beat Al Iaquinta by technical submission. He's lost to Masvidal, but he's had some big wins. I mean, he lost to Joe Lozon, and Lozon's got a great fight team going in New England right now. And then he won 3 in a row, including Jim Miller and Benil Dariush, who's had a great run lately. 2 losses back-to-back to Kevin Lee, technical submission, and then Anthony Pettis, the triangle armbar submission, when he missed weight by 2.5 pounds. And that's when you talked about going back to welterweight, changed his career, Jeff, and he beat Condit, Sanchez, and Dos Anjos all in a row. None of those guys, though, are Neil Magny. Dos Anjos close in terms of the level. I don't think he's there now, but then he went back to 55. So beating Condit and Diego Sanchez I mean, look, they're both a little long in the tooth. Diego a lot more than Condit. Condit looked pretty decent this past Saturday, but a win over Magny's a big one for Chiesa. A big win over Chiesa is a big one for Magny. So if you're looking for each guy and what they could do coming off a win in this fight, then you're getting into maybe the winner fights a Woodley, maybe the winner fights a Wonder Boy. Who knows? Because Edwards has the fight booked. Colby does not. Everyone wants to see Masvidal and Colby, which we think is going to happen. So you have Usman, Burns, Colby, and Masvidal. Edwards has Chimaev. That leaves Thompson, Woodley, Damian Maia for the winner of this fight.
Yeah, I don't have the rankings pulled up in front of me, but yeah, the winner of this fight's going to get their next fight could be against a top 5 opponent. You know, and so this is a very meaningful fight in the division. Now, yeah, is it going to crown a number 1 contender? No, but it's 2 guys that's been around for a long time and have fought some really, really good competition, and both of them are on the rise right now. And so somebody's going to stall out at number 8 and 9 in the division, and the next guy's going to jump up to 7th or 6th. And then once you're there, you're within eye shot or earshot of the title. And so this is a big fight. And yeah, Chiesa's wins, but that's what this fight's about. Those 3 wins since moving up to welterweight, those aren't, their names are good, but they're late in their career. But then that's where this fight falls in. If Chiesa wins this fight, then he is legitimately top 10 in a welterweight in the world. If Neil Magny wins this fight, then he's legitimately a top 10 guy. Magny, I think, has better wins than Chiesa, but Chiesa's very dangerous on the ground.
So JC Mata says, I think Luque versus Jorge would be interesting. Yeah, it would be. I mean, Luque would love that, but I think Masvidal's fighting Colby or Conor next. Maybe a rematch against Diaz. And the reason I say that, I would love to see Masvidal fight Diaz again because I think Nate was coming back in that fight. And, the more times you hit him, the better he gets. I think Nate actually had a chance to come back and win that fight when it was stopped because of that awful cut above his eye, and it was a terrible cut. But I think Masvidal Diaz rematch, but everyone wants to see George fight Colby, right? Don't you think? I mean, that's the one everybody wants to see is Masvidal. I mean, look, everyone wants to see George and Conor too.
Yeah, that's the fight everybody wants to see. I'm not sure that that's the fight that we're going to get to see, though. There's just so much history there, and Colby doesn't want to lose to Masvidal. Masvidal sure as the hell doesn't want to lose to Covington, and the only way that can happen is they not fight. And so I'm not sure that we're gonna see that fight. That's the fight that everybody wants to see. But I think that if Conor loses or wins and Khabib's gone, you'll see Masvidal make a hard push for Conor immediately. Or a Diaz rematch. I think that Masvidal would be more open to Nate than to Colby. But the UFC wants to see Colby and Masvidal. The fans want to see Colby and Masvidal. I'm just not sure that either one of those fighters want to take the risk of losing to the other one.
Yeah, and where does Chimaev fit in this division, man? When you think about that, he fights at 170 and 185, but he's 15th in the rankings at 170. And a win over Leon Edwards, I mean, he's the number 3 guy. And Edwards taking a big risk in that fight because he, by rights, has earned a shot at a Masvidal or a guy in that top level, and he could go tumbling down with a loss to Chimaev. So that's interesting coming up too. I mean, what a great time to be a fight fan. They're stacked up. The biggest fighters in the world didn't fight a ton of times last year. They're all ready to go after the break and coming into the new year. And we just got some huge fights coming up. Some incredible storylines within every division. And I don't know, man. I can't wait to see how this all plays out. And it really starts on Saturday night with Chandler's debut against Hooker and Conor Poirier to see where we're headed. We're just a couple of minutes away from Magny versus Chiesa, MMA Weekly's live coverage of UFC Fight Night from Abu Dhabi. Let's see what else. Magny can't deal BJJ dudes, says Poncho. Yeah, I mean, Magny has struggled against some BJJ fighters. Let's see. Justin says, after Colby, I think you will see Masvidal fight Jake Paul. Please, God, nobody fight Jake Paul. JC Mata says, I think Luque, here's one for you, Jeff. He thinks Luque will become a champ Sunday and soon. Says he's super fast. Saw him in person. Do you think Luque has championship level ability?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, we won't know until we see him in there against championship level fighters. Yes, he has a lot of promise. Yes, I think he's a prospect that we all need to be looking out for, and I think he has a great future, and he could definitely be a champion. I don't know about soon though. It depends on, I guess, our definition of soon. But yes, I think that he is somebody to look out for sure.
The
The main
silent
event has
assassin.
started. Yeah, the main event has started, and it's just mainly they're just throwing jabs at each other, early first round, filling each other out.
Yeah, the thing about Luque, real quick, is that the losses to the two best fighters he's faced, Leon Edwards and Stephen Thompson, were both unanimous decisions. So he doesn't have a win over a guy with that level of a name or that type of competition. So yeah, the main event is underway, and Chiesa and Magny. And Chiesa looks good. He does look really good at 170, though. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, when
Yeah,
a guy cuts too much weight, he doesn't look healthy, and then you got to fight. 24 hours, a little over 24 hours later, after putting your body through such a violent weight cut. That was one of my biggest issues about having the weigh-ins at the ceremonial weigh-ins at the same time, and then they gave him extra time doing it in the morning, because you were never seeing the best versions of these fighters because of violent weight cut or just worse than that, a weight cut that went wrong. You're not seeing the best version of that fighter when they're quickly rehydrating and putting that weight back on in 24 hours. So you won't see a fighter at their best as you will, before a weight cut. So I think that really helped. And I like to see guys fight up a weight class if they're cutting too much to stay at a certain weight, which is why I think Paulo Costa should be a light heavyweight. I love Paulo. I want to see him fight at light heavyweight.
yeah, I think that we're seeing a trend of fighters doing that, cutting less amount of weight or going up in weight class. And Chiesa that we're just talking about, and Chiesa has top position on the ground right now. Not good for Neil Magny. But you're seeing guys go up in weight class, not cutting as much weight and kind of thriving a little bit.
Yeah.
Weight cutting. Look, it's their choice, and I understand why we do it. But I agree with you. You very rarely see somebody 100% because they've just cut 15 pounds and then put it back on and then fought within a 24-hour period. Where these guys that go up in weight class that aren't cutting any weight, or heavyweights, that don't have to cut weight at all, then you
Yeah.
are seeing them at their best. But these lighter weight classes, I mean, we talked about Conor when he would fight at 145, it just didn't look good at all. Aldo doesn't look good at the weigh-ins now. There's other guys that you just see them when they weigh in, and you're just like, why, dude? I mean, and go back to like Chris Cyborg, man, that video of her trying to cut to 135 to fight at 135. It should be against the law to do that, man. But I agree.
Magny's in a little bit of trouble here. Chiesa's working for a submission on the ground, and one of our people in the chat did say Magny's struggling against BJJ. That's where Chiesa has a good advantage in this fight. He was working maybe toward what might have been an armbar for a while. He's working on the head and neck, sticking that forearm in there, throwing some elbows, and just working that top position with under a minute left in round number 1 against Neil Magny. So you'd have to score this round for Chiesa. Is that a Darcy's worker? He's got a headlock up front, and he's throwing some punches in there. But Chiesa working that top position pretty well. Magny's got to survive another 30 seconds. Jeff, I think you're pretty far ahead of us again, like you were the other day. How much time is the round over yet for you?
No, but it's getting ready to be. But yeah, I mean, Chiesa's working in half guard.
15, 14, 13. I don't know where you're at.
So I'm about 10 or 12 seconds ahead. But yeah, Chiesa got him down, and he was working in half guard, looking to pass his guard, wasn't able to do that, and kind of just kind of interfering with his breathing, putting his hand over his mouth, working a little elbows. I feel like Chiesa right there, once he got top position, was just kind of filling it out to see where, if he could mount him, he'd go to side control. And like you said, it looked like he briefly looked for a Darce choke. But yeah, Chiesa's got the advantage on the ground. There's no question about that. Neil has to keep this fight standing and land strikes.
Yeah, and that wasn't the best scenario for Neil Magny in round number 1. So
no,
that was a good round for Chiesa, and yeah, and so Chiesa is going to look to do more of that in round number 2. And again, these are the 8 and 9 guys in the world at 170. And Chiesa looks good. I want to speak to your point that you made earlier. He does look really good at 170, man. Michael Chiesa looks really good at 170. And not just, performance-wise, he looks better. He looks stronger. He looks more explosive. He's a better fighter at that weight. And he just looks good at that weight. And I think he's found a home there.
Look how big he is still at this weight class, though. He's got good broad shoulders. He's a muscular guy, and it's just crazy that he ever cut that amount of weight.
That's a good
But see
point, man,
now
because some guys you think when they go up a weight class, they're going to be smaller than everyone. And that is not necessarily true. That is
mm-mm.
not. I mean, some guys can go up a weight class and still be a big welterweight, even if they were a big lightweight. That it doesn't mean because you're going up a weight class, you're going to be the small guy.
No, and
Yes, so working
whenever
for another
you're
takedown.
yeah, whenever you're one of those fighters that could, you have to choose between weight classes. You stop lifting weights and stuff. You stop putting on muscle so you don't put on mass. And so you can make that 155. Well, Chiesa is able to do that now. He's able to work out like he normally does, put on some muscle, and then not have to cut 15 pounds. What's weird about it is he's probably cutting a little bit of weight to make 170 now. Where
Yeah.
before that just shows you how much weight he was cutting to make 155. But yeah, Chiesa, he's able to close the distance and tie Magny up, and then once they're up against the cage, it's not good from there. And that's where they are now. Chiesa has Magny pressed against the cage, and Magny's just trying not to get taken down.
Yeah, and that's a tough, tough spot for Magny to be in. And Chiesa's so strong. I mean, you look at those legs, he's got muscle on top of muscle, very good grappler, but he's very strong for his size, whether it's 55 or 70. And there he goes. He just drags him down and throws him on the mat. And, that's exactly where Magny does not want to be with 3.5 minutes left in round number 2.
Exactly. And Magny's active from the bottom, but he's just not as good as Chiesa on the ground. And so while yes, he's going to scramble a little bit, Chiesa's really got dominant top control. You're not going to reverse this guy, and you're not going to get him off of you. As soon as I say that, though, Magny, Magny was able to get back to his feet briefly, only to be taken right back down. So yeah,
Yeah, and
this looks like it's
training
going to be a long night for Neil
tomorrow.
Magny.
Yeah, long night for Neil Magny so far for sure. And, Chiesa's in a really good position now. Let's see. Anything good in the chat? Let's see. I
But this
think
is a
Izzy could do
5 round
middleweight
fight.
and light heavyweight because doesn't he
Mhm.
walk around at like 203? Izzy could do middleweight and light heavyweight. We're going to see him fight Blachowicz coming up here soon. I think Izzy has the frame to put on enough size where he could actually be a pretty big light heavyweight. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I think Izzy can do
Chiesa
both of
walk,
those weight classes.
yeah, both of those weight classes. And Chiesa walks around at 180 plus anyway, right? I mean, that's a good point by Justin in the chat. He's a big dude and he was cutting a ton of weight to get to 55 and he was having trouble with it. But he's not having any trouble with Neil Magny here. Chiesa with great top control. I mean, just so strong, just using that body weight and that leverage. And Magny's in a whole lot of trouble here. Chiesa has a lot of options to work toward from top position.
Yeah, he just can't deal with Chiesa's top control. Like I said, he's active from the bottom, but he cannot get Chiesa off of him. And but he's not taking a ton of damage. I'll say that he being active from the bottom and trying to improve his position is preventing him from taking large amounts of damage. So right now we got Chiesa in top position. He's controlling Magny, but he's not inflicting a bunch of damage to Neil. But this is Chiesa's game, right? Chiesa's going to keep doing this, and then here pretty soon, I would look for him to lock onto a submission or at least try to get Neil out of here.
Yeah, without a doubt. And this is, I mean, he's got a little bit of time, a little over a minute to work. He's got this round. You'd have to think in the bag first round, you'd have to think was a 10-9 Chiesa round. It's a 5-round fight being a main event, but the ground control time for Chiesa is already up over 4 minutes in the first 9 minutes of this fight. So you'd have to say this has gone exactly the way that he wanted it to go.
Oh yeah, Chiesa's having his way in here right now. Like I said, Neil is unable to put together the striking enough to keep Chiesa at distance. And as long as Chiesa keeps closing the distance and putting him against the cage, this is going to repeat itself probably for all 5 rounds. Neil has to make an adjustment. He's got to start moving laterally and getting his jab out there and finding a home with his jab, or Chiesa's going to close the distance and just keep taking him down. But right now, Chiesa is putting on a clinic. It's classic Michael Chiesa. It's what he does. He takes you down. He advances his position, controls you on the ground. Once you make a mistake, he ends the fight.
Yeah, and laying all over you with that leverage and that body weight and that strength, and it just sucks the life and the gas and the cardio right out of you. And that's what he's doing to Magny here. With as far as what I can see, Jeff, I think you're already at the end of round 2. I'm at 5, 4, 3. So Chiesa's
Yeah.
still just dominating and controlling top position on Magny. So you got to figure it's 2018 Chiesa after 2.
Oh, easily. It's 2018. Chiesa after 2. And like I said, Neil's going to have to make an adjustment. He has to do it now because there's only 3 rounds left. And so for him to win a unanimous decision, he's got to make the adjustment now. Chiesa just has to keep doing what he's doing. It'll be interesting to see how Magny comes out in this 3rd round, because if he doesn't change something, this is going to repeat itself, for 5 rounds with Chiesa winning a unanimous decision, 50-45.
Yeah, and not much of an entertaining fight so far either. We want to see some fists flying and some feet, some elbows, and knees, and the Conor Poirier promos coming on now. Will be this is a good time for us to remind you, Jeff Kane, 18 years plus at MMA Weekly, covering the UFC, a walking encyclopedia of history. You can see kind of above his right shoulder there to your left, the Iceman Chuck Liddell trunks that he's got hanging on the wall, Iceman.tv. And we've done a lot of shows together recently, Jeff, and we've got a lot of big ones coming up throughout this year. We're going to be doing live weigh-in shows, post-fight press conference shows. We're streaming live during McGregor and Poirier on Saturday night. We have a Friday preview show in the afternoon. We have a Sunday wrap-up show, and then leading you in, we'll put up tomorrow Conor McGregor's top 5 funniest moments that we're going to do today. So a lot of things coming your way on MMA Weekly. Still, though, now we hit round 3, just getting underway. Number 8, Michael Chiesa. Number 9, Neil Magny. Chiesa won the first 2 rounds by taking Magny down and had a lot of time and control, over 5 minutes of control time on the ground in the first 2 rounds. And now Magny, though, starting to let loose and throw some of those strikes Jeff Kane was talking about.
Yeah, he has to. He has no choice, right? He's just dropped the first 2 rounds. He has to win the next 3 rounds to win a decision, or he's got to get a finish. I was thinking that Neil might come out and actually try to take Chiesa down early in this round. He did not do that, though.
Now he's got him up against the cage, though, and trying to, shoulder to shoulder, trying to pin him in. He's got an underhook. So let's see. Our Dog says GSP versus Khabib main event. Conor and Justin Gaethje co-main, and Jake Paul, Dylan. Our Dog. First of all, Conor McGregor's never going to be a co-main event in his entire career. No chance that ever happens. And Dana even said, and there's no way the GSP Khabib fight's off the table. Unless Khabib says the only fight I'm doing is GSP, I can't imagine it. And oh, look at that, Jeff. You called it. Magny with the takedown. And now Chiesa pops right back up, and Magny, though, has his back. And this is not a good position for Chiesa.
It was smart. I mean, that's one good thing about Neil is a smart fighter. I mean, you're getting taken down. Take him down. You control the position. And that's what he's done here. Chiesa, though, just quickly got back to his feet. But Neil Magny is winning this round so far, and he's made an adjustment that's got him back in this fight, because he was out of this fight. I mean, he was dominated the first 2 rounds. He didn't take a ton of damage, but he was dominated.
Yeah, and it's still fresh, still feeling okay in there, and winning this round so far with 3 minutes left in round number 3 of our main event at welterweight. And we're having fun here on MMA Weekly, and we just kind of react to what's going on, break a lot of other things down. We got Conor and Poirier coming up, and Chiesa lands a big left hand. He's a pretty strong fighter and has a lot of power in his punches. And, fighting southpaw is not easy ever for anybody either as an opponent. And Chiesa going in, and as he's, obviously going to be prone to do, punching into a takedown attempt with a couple of lefts, and now has Magny up against the fence.
Yeah. And then from this point on in the fight, I would say conditioning is going to be a factor. We're going to figure out one of these guys will fade. Historically, that's what it tells us. And Magny usually isn't that guy. Magny's usually in impeccable shape. So we'll see if Chiesa can keep up this pace. He's the one, he's the one initiating the clinches and working on the takedowns. And so he's using a lot of energy. But we'll see. We'll see. Neil definitely looks better in this 3rd round, though.
Yeah, he does. And now Chiesa works it back. He's throwing some knees, looking for a trip and a takedown, working that inside trip on Magny, and Magny's able to defend it. So Magny's doing a little bit better this round in terms of his overall output, much better in terms of his takedown defense. And Chiesa's still relentlessly working for one, so far unable to get it, with about 1.5 minutes left in round number 3. And Bilal Muhammad just tweeted in, and there's a takedown for Chiesa. This is where cardio kicks in. And that's true. But Chiesa with the takedown rolled a little bit too far. And now Magny has a chance at maybe an ankle lock, but nope, passes up on that. And, what a nice rollover from Chiesa to try to get back on top, and he's able to do it. That's some great grappling by Michael Chiesa. You guys are gonna have to watch this if you're
Yeah.
not seeing it on ESPN
He
Plus. He's working for
briefly,
a
yeah,
submission
he briefly had Magny mounted, and then Magny was able to get back to half guard real quick, but he briefly had him mounted. I don't know how they're going to score this round. In the beginning of this round, Neil Magny was winning it. As we come into the latter parts of the round, Chiesa is back to doing what he does. He's got Magny down. He's working in half guard. It's actually landed some elbows this round, though, a little bit. So it looks like Chiesa's decided to maybe soften him up a little bit. Maybe a submission will open up.
Well, no, and I'm wondering too if this allows Chiesa to come steal this round, which would mean Magny won't be able to win a decision because Magny clearly was, it was his round for over half of it. But this late reversal, the second half of this round, is it enough for Chiesa to steal this round too?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what the judges do. Chiesa inflicted some damage this round, though. It looked like he had that in his head. Magny won the beginning part of the round. Chiesa, once he got top position there at the end, he decided to land some strikes to try to maybe steal the round. I don't know if he stole the round or not. That was an incredibly close round. Chiesa's still up 2-1. Worst case scenario for him. But Magny could be down 3-0. Magny might need a finish to win this fight.
Yeah, he might, and he's certainly capable of getting it. But a good performance so far by Chiesa. Faced a little adversity in that third round that he hadn't faced in the fight yet. Pretty much dominated and had his way. But, Magny came out in that round a lot more aggressive, throwing combos, landing some big combination punches and an elbow. And then he got a takedown of his own, which, evened things up in the round because Chiesa got one and he got one. And then Chiesa landed a couple of big lefts in that round as well. And then, of course, just picking him up and throwing him down and ending in top position. So as far as the strikes went in that round, maybe a slight edge to Chiesa. They each had a takedown. So you might, you know what, Jeff, you might have a point. It might be 3-0 right now. It might be 3-0 for Chiesa. It might legitimately be 30-27 as we head to round 4.
Yeah, and Magny's going to have to make a decision here. You're going to have to do something. You're going to have to go for broke. You're going to have to let everything go on the feet, and then on the ground, you can't settle for a position. You just can't settle for the position. But Chiesa is so good in top position, man. I mean that's the problem is that Chiesa is so good in top that Magny just got to keep from getting taken down.
And Magny's got a little bit of a reach advantage that he hasn't really put into play yet in this fight.
Yeah, this fight's going one way.
Yeah, I think you're still a few seconds ahead of me because you said "ooh" and nothing was happening for me yet. Oh, there it is. Ooh,
there it is. Yeah. Chiesa landed a hell of a right hand there and took Magny down. I mean, that was probably the best strike of the fight so far.
So Rocco ROKO Katava says 3-0 rounds is the verdict for him. I just hit my table and shook the camera. Sorry, guys. The first and second for Chiesa and third for Chiesa. So,
I agree. I think it's 3-9, getting ready to be 4-9. Yeah, Chiesa's getting more aggressive in inflicting damage from top now. So maybe he feels like he's worn Magny down a little bit, and these strikes are going to come through. But he's definitely not just riding these rounds out. He looks like he's looking for a finish and looking to inflict some damage to Magny.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it'd be a great way to end the fight, to dominate him and to get a finish. It kind of reminds me a little bit of what Ryan Bader did against Rampage in Japan a few years back. And how many times do we see it like a Colby Covington style fight from Chiesa here, where he's not doing a lot of damage with the strikes, and Colby doesn't have a ton of power with his striking. He hit Woodley a million times in that fight, but it was the grappling and the wrestling. So Chiesa's kind of that ilk. He fights I would say that's a pretty decent comparison. He fights pretty similarly to the way Colby does. Colby throws a lot of strikes, don't get me wrong, but this is an ideal scenario for a guy who's a grappler like Chiesa, and he's doing really well. And he's been able to implement what he wants to do in this fight and just grind it out and wear down Neil Magny. And again, early in round 2, he was taken down himself. He absolutely, had a chance, Magny did, to score some points and to steal that round. Chiesa, though, toward the end of the round, picked up the takedown and probably stole it. But this is his type of fight, Michael Chiesa. This is what you're going to see when he's in the cage.
And Magny just tried to scramble to get out from off the bottom, and he ended up giving up his back. And he is in a world of shit right now with Chiesa on his back.
Black belt. He's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. It's not like this is just his style of fight.
Mhm.
And he is in a world of hurt right now. Magny is. That's a bad. I mean, he's got almost 2 minutes left.
I know it. And Chiesa, the prediction in the chat might be really accurate. Well, no, I mean Neil decided to give up mount, to roll over and not have Chiesa on his back and threaten him with a rear naked choke. He'll just deal with the mount situation. We'll see. Magny's active from the bottom. He shrimps. He tries to create space.
Yep. Magny just missed with a flying knee. I mean, just missed. It was close. That's a game changer
Magny was
right
able
there.
to get up.
And Chiesa still working like a dog up against that fence, trying to single leg right now.
We've got about a minute left in the round. Yeah, it's interesting little exchange going on right here. A really
Chiesa
interesting
still had that one
exchange.
single leg. Yeah, what is it? Magny with the legs with a triangle on the upper body of Chiesa, while Chiesa's on his knees and Magny hanging downward. Now they're on the ground and Magny's crushing Chiesa's midsection back inside with elbows. Interesting from Magny, but he's got that triangle locked in on the upper body of Chiesa.
Yeah, I mean, it was for a minute. I thought he was going to be able to get that kind of reverse triangle choke. He wasn't able to. Chiesa's too good for that, and Chiesa defends it and gains top position back. But that was probably the best exchange on the grappling exchange of the fight, right there. I mean, that was an entertaining back and forth grappling exchange to end that fourth round. That was amazing. I mean, this is a good fight. It's just not. It doesn't have those wow moments, Chiesa did land a really good right hand that round, but this is basically a clinch and a grappling match, which is exactly what Chiesa wanted. It's what I thought Magny would be able to avoid. He's not able to avoid it, and he's got to have a finish here in the fifth round. That's all there is to it. We're heading into the fifth and final round, and I have Chiesa up 4-0. And so Magny's going to have a finish here to win this fight. Or a DQ.
Yeah, he absolutely has to. And that could have been, I mean, not really. No, never mind. I'm not going to say it. I was thinking 10-8, but that's not a 10-8 round. It's a 10-9 round.
That was a pretty good round. I mean, yeah, Chiesa controlled all that, but Magny was active and he was able to get up after having his back taken, and he was able to take Chiesa's back, and then he was able to put on that reverse triangle choke. He had some success. He just can't keep Chiesa from taking him down.
Yeah, 42-22 is the number they're putting up on the screen for ground strikes for Chiesa over Magny. 4 takedowns to 1, and then 9 minutes, 42 seconds of top control time for Chiesa, as opposed to just, 25 seconds for Neil Magny.
Yeah, and Chiesa can cruise this round. This is where Dana hates open scoring, but Chiesa knows he's up, right? He can cruise this round. We'll see if he does that. That's kind of frowned upon by a lot of people, but I think it's smart. Why put yourself in danger when you're up 4 rounds? But at the same time, you got to keep your job and try to at least look like you're going for a finish.
Yeah, and Magny is being really aggressive, stalking him around the octagon, looking for the strikes, and Chiesa happy to go toe-to-toe with him. Someone in the chat saying Chiesa is gassed, but I don't think Chiesa is gassed. I think Chiesa, or in the UFC's tweets, by the way, I think Chiesa's got plenty left in the tank, and he's fine here.
Well, even if he is gassed, Magny is afraid to commit on too much because he keeps getting taken down and dominated on the ground. So Magny's hesitant to throw. Even if Chiesa's gassed right now, Magny's not going to be able to capitalize on it, because if he gets too close or overcommits, he's put on his back again. And so it doesn't really matter if he's gassed, although I don't think that Chiesa is gassed. I think that Chiesa just knows he has this fight won, and there's no reason to get in a crazy exchange with Magny.
Yeah, and then Chiesa just got hit with a little bit of left by Magny, but then ducks under it and goes right at the waist. And now he's turned that into, he's wrapped around Magny's back up against the cage and looking for that trip and the takedown again. So that speaks to your point, Jeff. Magny getting too close. That left hand, Chiesa just ducks under with a level change, and now he's got the shot, a really good shot to end this fight right here with another takedown. And then Magny doesn't get up for the rest of the fight at the 3-minute mark. Spins away, though, and now Chiesa doesn't have his back anymore. Now Magny has
it's
Chiesa's
interesting.
back.
Magny.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's just damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you're Magny, right? He just pulled Chiesa to the ground and tried to take his back. Chiesa spun around. Now Chiesa's got top position. And so this is just a mismatch on the ground. It's just a mismatch on the ground. Chiesa is a lot better than Magny when it comes to grappling. Magny's active and he scrambles well, but he's unable to do anything. He's unable to put Chiesa in any danger at all.
No, he was just sitting on his face for a minute there, and he was leaning forward and trying to work that position. Now he's looking at side control, and now he's throwing some left hands and burying that forearm into the throat of Magny, throwing an elbow to the temple. And I mean, this is just dirty fighting. And by dirty, I don't mean dirty as in he's breaking the rules. I mean dirty as in grimy and filthy and just nasty. And this is exactly what Chiesa wants to be. He's done it the whole fight. He's even more so now. Magny's doing the best he can with 2 minutes left in the fight, Jeff, but this is not his position. This is Chiesa's fight from start to finish. It has been. And he's dominated Magny, and he's doing it right now. He might even be looking for a Darce or submission here.
Yeah, it's been a one-sided fight for sure. Now Magny hasn't really been put in any danger either, but he's been dominated, positionally dominated. And then both of them. I think that the biggest strikes landed on the feet were landed by Chiesa in the last round, which is kind of strange. And then Chiesa's not like I said, he's not killing him on the ground, but he's controlling him enough. He's in half guard. He puts his weight on top of him and keeps him there. And then Magny can do nothing. He can literally do nothing. And so it's really up to Chiesa whether he wants to land any elbows or not. Right now, Chiesa's just kind of, he does look like he might be looking to set up a choke, attempting to.
Yeah, and again, you got to keep working if you're Chiesa too, because you don't want to get stood up here. You got the fight won, But the ground control time, it's been 2:05, 3:22, 1:15, 3:01, and now about 2 minutes for Chiesa. So in every single round, he's had Magny on the ground for over a minute and over 2 minutes in almost every round.
Yeah, this is a big performance for Chiesa because, like I said, his career's changed now that he's moved to the welterweight division, and now he's taken out somebody who's a respected welterweight and has some really solid wins. And this will put him on a 4-fight winning streak, I believe. Yeah, this is a great performance by Chiesa. And yeah, it's not the most exciting fight, but it is a dominating fight.
Dominating fight, start to finish for the Mike Mav Chiesa. 10 seconds left on what I'm seeing right now. And, Magny's not going anywhere. Chiesa just sprawled out on top of him, now posturing up. And there it is. Fight's over. Michael Chiesa with a dominating. And that's a 50-45 fight. Without a doubt.
Oh, yeah.
For Chiesa. Maybe even more. Send if they gave him a 10-8 round. I mean, maybe that fourth round, possibly 10-8 rounds. So Robert says he prays for Jim to choke out Jeff. I know you can do it, son. Someone's praying for me to choke you out. I don't know why. Why do you want Jeff to get choked out? Jeff's a nice guy.
I've got pretty good defense too. Man, simmer down. Yeah, I don't think any of those were 10-8 rounds because Chiesa didn't do damage. He dominated him with position, but he didn't inflict a ton of damage. Had he landed 10 or 15 elbows, I think that one of those is a 10-8 round, but he just didn't do that. I don't want to get choked out. Although I don't mind the dream, I always thought that was weird. I've been choked out before, and I have like an hour-long dream when I'm out like 3 seconds. It's weird.
Oh, really? I thought you were talking about that choking game there that everybody wanted to play when we were kids, where you just make yourself pass out.
I've done that. Yeah, I've had that done as well. And
I did that once, and I almost broke my leg in half. I snapped my knees. Never been the same. I'll never do it again.
No, you gotta have nice friends that lay you down. Or nitrous oxide. That's a big thing in the jam band community, which is laughing gas, and it will put you to sleep as well. And you have a long dream, but you're only out for like 3 seconds. But yeah, whenever I've been choked out, I feel like a lot of time has passed when there hasn't been a lot of time passed.
Let's see. Here we go.
Let's see what they read. What do they read?
49-46. They gave Magny the second round.
Okay, that was a close round. I didn't, but that was, if you're going to give him any round, it was that round.
I think man, DC.
Yeah.
Retirement weight. Easy. I love DC. And him and Felder together are phenomenal. So a 4-fight win streak for Chiesa, now at 18-4.
Yeah, I mean that was an impressive win. He did it in dominating fashion, and so that wasn't a squeak by decision.
Whoa, okay. So I just heard the call out. Chiesa's going to call out somebody. Guess what he just said? And I'll repeat. Colby Covington, the election is over. I want your ass next, boy. What are you going to talk about now? I want your ass next. So he just called out Colby. I don't think he's going to get that fight anytime soon, but nice try by Chiesa to call out Colby.
Yeah, might as well. I mean, always call out somebody higher ranked than you. I mean, Chiesa will jump. He entered that fight ranked number 8. I don't know how much he can move up. He'll probably move up a spot. I'd have to look at who's 6th. But there's no way he breaks into the top 5 with that win.
6
but
is Woodley, 7's Maya.
Then I think he
5
can
is
jump into the. Yeah, he jumps into the 6th spot. I'll just say that right now. He's going to jump into the 6th spot, likely in the rankings. But that is not far from Covington. But he probably is. He's not going to get that fight. But it's a fun call out, right? I mean, it's a fun call. Everybody wants to fight Colby Covington.
Let's be honest. I think Colby dominates Chiesa. I mean,
yeah, I think. I think that most likely Colby dominates him, but Chiesa is very well versed in submissions, and so his jiu-jitsu might catch Colby on the ground, but Colby's going to take him down and control him, and he's probably going to win the striking exchanges. But who knows, man? I mean, Chiesa is looking better and better. But yeah, I think that Colby wins that fight, but I don't blame Chiesa for calling him out.
No, and if I'm Colby, I'm not fighting anybody except for the winner of Burns and Usman. I'm not fighting Masvidal. Yeah. I'm not fighting anybody if I'm Colby Covington other than for a belt. And I'm thinking it'd be great if it's Burns, then I fight Burns and I get another shot at Usman, but it doesn't matter. Our dog in the chat says we want to see Colby Usman too. Let Usman break his face and make him cry again. Would have never happened if it weren't for the fake eye poke. I'm just going to say. And I'm no Colby fan. Look, I'm just saying if Usman didn't fake that eye poke, and I forget the round, was it 3rd round, 4th round? Then Colby had him in big trouble, and then the phantom eye poke saves the day for Kamaru Usman, and then he's able to do what he did in the 5th round, which I give him credit for. But that fight easily could have gone either way. That was one epic and one hell of a back-and-forth battle that I want to see again. I want Usman to take out Burns and fight Colby again. I don't want Colby to fight anybody besides Usman again for that fight. So I agree with you on that, R-Dog. Some people want to see Colby versus Masvidal. But if you're looking for Masvidal to shut Colby up, I don't think that's happening. I think Colby has an easy time and just takes him down and beats him up the whole fight, like what we saw against Tyron Woodley.
I agree. I think that Colby's a tough matchup for Masvidal. Each fight or each round starts standing, and so Jorge's going to have a shot. But more than likely, Colby's just going to take him down and smother him the entire fight and talk a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I mean, Colby's the number 1 contender, so Chiesa's not getting that fight. Colby's not taking a fight unless it's for the title. He's going to fight the winner of the title fight. That's it. Because I don't think that they're going to be able to put together Masvidal and Colby. I don't think that either one of them are going to agree to it to get that deal done when Colby's sitting there waiting for a title fight, right?
No.
And so I think that we're more apt to see Masvidal fight a Diaz again than we are to see Covington right now, unless Masvidal goes out and fights somebody else and puts an impressive performance and then goes up in the rankings a little bit. But right now, Colby's just waiting for Usman to see if he wins his next fight to get that shot. But yeah, I agree. I always like seeing Colby Covington lose. I mean,
Robert says Colby Covington will be champ this year. He could be. What's the problem, Jeff?
He could be. I said, I like seeing Colby lose too. Somebody in the chat said, I like seeing Colby lose. I think John Hartnett is doing a terrible job writing Colby Covington's content. But how you doing, John? Haven't seen you in a while. but yeah, I just don't like the rhetoric that Kobe uses. Kobe's an excellent fighter. I actually think it takes away from how good of a fighter that he is. I think that people think Kobe Covington's a joke, because he says all this weird shit, uh, and then just really, borderline offensive stuff. But whenever he comes down to his fighting ability, that dude's one of the best fighters in the world. He could be champion, and so I actually think that Kobe's little stick uh, hurts him when it comes to people looking at him as legitimate. Kobe's a hell of a fighter, man. So don't let his little act kind of make you forget about that. Kobe Covington's for real, dude. He's legit. He's legit.
Legit. One of the top
He's
fighters
got a
in the
good
world.
little thing. Yeah. He's got a good thing going right now. Kobe's good. Nobody's in the sports saying the things that Kobe's saying, so there's an avenue for that.
That jacket
right?
too, man. That jacket, I mean, Colby's Colby. He's gonna sell a lot of fights. He's pushing the needle. I like him in some. I like him as a fighter. I mean, the
Yeah.
persona from who was a nice guy and obviously doing it to make money. Kind of like the cringe of Henry Cejudo. Same deal. It's marketing. You're an individual athlete. Whatever. Pushing it pretty far sometimes, and I get that. But when he snapped on Verdum, in Brazil, I mean, like that kind of switched things for him. But I really do believe that Colby Covington is about as elite a fighter as you're going to find in the UFC. That was a war with Kamaru, who has run through everyone, and he did not run through Colby Covington. That was a great fight from start to finish. I'm anxious to see what happens with Kamaru and Burns because I think Burns is a beast, but I just don't think he has enough to beat Kamaru. I want to see Colby fight Kamaru in the rematch, and people are saying they want to see Colby and Jorge Masvidal coach a season of tough together, and people want to see that fight. But if I'm Colby, I'm not doing anything to take myself out of title contention because he thinks he won that fight and he thinks he can beat Usman and do it in the rematch. And I think that would be something that everybody wants to see.
Yeah, see, I don't know Kobe personally, and so I don't know how he is off camera. But you got to be careful putting him on the Ultimate Fighter because you just can't say what he says for a whole season of the Ultimate Fighter, and then that also gives him a long time to possibly step way over the line. But Kobe Covington is an excellent fighter, and I think that I know that it's an act, and he's just trying to make money and market himself. And so Kobe's a smart dude, man. I mean, it's working. It's working for him. The president called him. He's been to the White House. But he takes things too far and takes things, in my opinion, he takes things too far. But who am I to say where the line is?
No, and someone put in the chat, and I just looked it up. Darren Till got into a little altercation with a couple of cops at a gas station today for not having a mask on. And then he posted something on Instagram about wearing a mask there. So Darren Till, if you want to see something funny, little altercation there. But man, I'll tell you what, guys, this has been a lot of fun, Jeff. I mean, we thought going on at 10 was a little bit of a stretch today. We said we'll go 11-1. This fight didn't end until 1:35 my time. I'm in Mountain Time, so 12:35 Pacific. Here we are today on your Wednesday. But this was a 2.5-hour show and a 3.5-hour main card. So you had it at 3 hours, Jeff. It's at least a 3-hour card. 3 hours and 35 minutes on the main card.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good day of fights. There were some finishes there in the co-main event, and then on the main card. Not a great, exciting day of fights, but competitive fights. It's Wednesday. Look, all this is to build up to what's coming on Saturday. That's what this fight week is about. They kicked it off strong, keep us going on a Wednesday afternoon, and we're heading into Saturday.
Yep, you got it, Jeff Kane. We got a lot of shows this week. Tomorrow we're going to put out Conor McGregor's top 5 funniest moments as we get you ready for the Notorious and Red Panty Night on Saturday night against Dustin Poirier. The second time they're fighting. First one was years ago. It was at featherweight. Neither guy is the same as they were then, obviously. And this one is a number 1 contender, potential champion, possibly matchup. The debut of Michael Chandler against Dan Hooker. Can't wait for that. Guys, we have the Conor McGregor show, top 5 funniest moments being put out tomorrow. Friday, we are live, noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, with our Poirier McGregor 2 preview show with interactive chat. We'll keep it coming for you guys with these shows and give you a chance with the interactive chat to be a part of them. We love it here, and we love you on MMA Weekly. Saturday, we'll be on at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific or thereabouts for Poirier versus McGregor 2 live coverage, and then the post-fight show right after it. So really 2 shows in one there. And then Sunday, Jeff, Poirier McGregor 2 live recap show with interactive chat, and that will be at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. So much content and so many shows coming your way as we get ready for the night the world is waiting for. UFC 257, the first time in over a year, the return of the one, the only, the biggest star this sport has ever seen, the notorious Conor McGregor against one of the best fighters in the world in Dustin Poirier. Jeff, I cannot wait for Saturday. All these shows just keep building and building and building. And don't forget, if you haven't seen our 2021 preview show yet, up on the MMA Weekly YouTube, that's a good one as well, with a lot of insight from Jeff and from myself, looking at all the different divisions and what we think might happen in the year that has kicked off in style with the UFC. So great performances, Jeff, by Holloway in the main event on Saturday and Chiesa in the main event today.
Yeah, dominating performance by Michael Chiesa. And our dog in the chat asked if we always do these. Yes, we do always do these. To answer your question, yes. Hopefully we will see you at them. Yeah, show up, man. We've got a lot of coverage coming. Looking forward to this weekend. Historic, potentially historic fight. But yeah, Conor McGregor with fans, right? That's what this whole week was building towards. I mean, Max Holloway, don't get me wrong, beautiful performance. Michael Chiesa, great job today. But we're all building towards Saturday, where the notorious comes back and tries to force Khabib Nurmagomedov out of retirement to defend that lightweight belt.
And he's got to beat Dustin Poirier to do it. Chandler's debut against Hooker, big fight card on Saturday. And then the following week is an off week, and we will be here with shows that week too, keeping you in the loop. And every time we do a show, you never know what we're going to talk about. We're going to veer off topic. We might talk about these. It's red panty night for Dustin Poirier. For the second time, he's going to make a lot of money. Conor McGregor makes everyone a lot of money every time he steps into the octagon. We can't wait for that fight on Saturday night. We're going to be right here live during that fight. And yes, our dog on every fight. So Chiesa with the win over Magny, unanimous decision over in Abu Dhabi on Fight Island. And we have got these first 2 fight cards done with, awaiting the arrival of Saturday. Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier. Again, Conor's funniest moments, the 2021 preview show, the Conor Poirier preview show on Friday, the live stream Saturday, and then Sunday, the wrap-up show. There is no other reason for you to go any other place besides MMA Weekly for the most trusted news and entertainment in mixed martial arts for almost 20 years. For Jeff Kane and our entire crew at MMA Weekly, let's not forget all the work they're doing on the webpage too, MMAWeekly.com. I'm Jim Greasehaber. Call me Grease. We got you locked and loaded all week. MMA Weekly's exclusive live coverage. Poirier, McGregor 2. That's all we need to say. That's all there is. There is no more. Make it a great day, everybody. Thanks for watching.